Good evening, everyone. This is the meeting of the Walpole Zoning Board of Appeals on Monday, July 17th. My name is Bob Fitzgerald. I'm the acting chair tonight as Chairman Lee was unable to attend. With me tonight is Tim Hogler, Judy Conroy, Dave Anderson, Mark Major, Lauren, I'm sorry, I don't have your last name.
That's okay. That's a long one.
Okay. Patrick Deshane and Town Council George Pucci. We have one item that has been withdrawn and another that has requested a continuance, so we're going to take care of those first before we get into the meat of our agenda. The first item is case number 23-19, 81 Diamond Street, for a special permit under the zoning bylaws, section 9.3.c, non-conforming uses, to allow for the expansion of the pre-existing non-conforming multifamily use within the limited manufacturing zoning district. We received an email from the applicant requesting to withdraw that application without prejudice. So I would like to entertain a motion to that effect. Could I have a motion to accept?
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
I would just take a motion to close the public hearing first and then go for the motion.
Okay. In light of that request, could I get a motion to close the public hearing for case number 23-19?
So moved. Second?
Moved by Dave and seconded by Mark. Any discussion on the motion to close the hearing?
So, Mr. Chair, I think voting on this would be four members, Mark Major, Mr. Anderson, Ms. Hagler, and Ms. Conroy is recusing herself.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm not going to get off the stage and come back. Too hot.
Okay, all those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, so carried. Now may I have a motion to, at the applicant's request, to approve the withdrawal without prejudice of case number 23-19?
So moved. Second?
Moved by Dave and seconded by Mark. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, so carried. The next item is case number 23-16, Daniel Martinez, 1245 Washington Street, a special permit under section 5D4A for earth removal and special permit under section 12.3.C5 in order to increase the impervious surface area in an Area 1 in the Water Resources Overlay Protection District. We have received a request from the applicants to continue. I see you're here, so if you'd like to address the board.
Yeah, Tony DiMartino, 1245 Washington Street. Yeah, we're not ready. Plans aren't finalized. Too many open ends still.
Okay. And when do you anticipate being ready?
We should soon. So we want to go for the next meeting, August 21st.
Yep.
August 21st? Okay.
Yes.
All right. So voting on the continuance would be the 5 members present. May I have a motion to continue case number 23-16 to August 21st at 7 p.m. here at Town Hall?
So moved.
Second?
Moved by Judy and seconded by Tim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstained? So carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
So if there anyone here who is interested in speaking on that matter, that's been continued to August the 21st. All right, moving to our agenda now, moving to case number 23-26. Related to a previous application, 3-20. Just for clarification, Patrick, is this the public notice or is that
So
separate?
it should be in the binder
In
for
this
the
one?
project. Yep.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the Town of Walpole will hold a public hearing in the Select Board Meeting Room of Walpole Town Hall on Monday, July 17th, 2023 at 7 p.m. on an application from 55 SS LLC, case number 23-26, related to previous case number 03-20, with respect to property located at 51, 53, and 55 Summer Street, Walpole, Massachusetts, zoning district LM. This application is for a modification to the previously approved comprehensive permit pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40B, Section 20 through 23 as amended, to allow for the construction of a 56-unit apartment-style building that will replace the previously approved 56 single-family and duplex ownership units located on Lot 2. This modification will also seek to move 3 of the townhouse-style rental buildings from Lot 1 to Lot 2 and eliminate the previously approved homeowners association. Before we begin, I understand that Dave and Mark will be recusing themselves from this matter, so they can step down. We have a quorum to continue to accept the information tonight. We don't have any expectation that we'll be closing tonight, but the other 2 members who are not present will mull in, and so you'll have a 5-person voting when a substantive vote is taken. Okay. So what I'd like to do is proceed with a presentation by the applicant to explain the modifications, then take questions from board members, and then entertain questions from the public. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm David Hale with 55 SS LLC. I'm here with Leslie French, my colleague, and Rob Hewitt of Fairfield Residential, and Patrick Bogle from Howard Stein Hudson.
Shut the door. It'd be nice to be cool, but it's too loud.
So, Mr. Chairman, what I'd like to do is just go through a brief agenda of things I'd like to cover. The first is I'll just go through the purpose of the hearing, then talk about the modifications requested, talk about the goals and impacts of those modifications. I'll go over the overall site, including the current approved site plan, the as-modified site plan, a red line that shows the new overlaid on the old. Just talk about the impact on the unit types and the parking ratio versus current versus modified. Patrick Bogle will talk briefly about the technical changes, stormwater and that sort of thing. Then I'll come back and talk about the few proposed waiver changes, talk briefly about a proposed decision language that you might or might not adopt, and then answer questions. So this is very simple. We're proposing to modify the project to replace the single-family and duplexes, which are ownership units, with a single 56-unit garden-style rental building. And then to move 3 rental townhomes from Lot 1 to Lot 2. They were the townhome buildings that were closest to the rail bed. Because at the end of this, all the land will be owned by a single owner, there'll be no need to have a homeowners association. So we're proposing to eliminate that. So in terms of the goals and impacts of the modification, one of the biggest impacts is that it moves units away from abutters and substantially away from abutters. There's a substantial decrease in the use of the wetland buffer. There's a substantial decrease in impervious coverage. As I mentioned before, we move units away from the rail bed. In terms of bedroom count, we reduce the bedroom count by 34. And we increase Walpole's SHI by 42. And those are the basic goals and impacts of this program. So this is a picture of the project as it's approved. And the pointer doesn't work on the screen, so if it's okay, I'm going to just
Yeah,
point
you could
things
just
out.
speak up so everyone can hear you while you're over there. That'd be great.
Okay, so all the units over here will be eliminated. These two townhomes will move over here, and this townhome will move over here. And as you'll see in the next picture, there'll be a multifamily building here. And that's- So this is a site plan of the project as modified. You see the additional 56-unit multifamily building. You see a lot of extra green space. So the townhomes that were here and here have been moved to here. And all the units, the singles and duplexes that were here and here have been moved into this 56-unit building. So this is just a red line overlay with the red representing what's going to exist and the gray what's no longer going to exist. So in terms of unit mix, the result of these changes will be 9 additional one-bedroom rental units. There'll be 32 additional two-bed units, and those are bedrooms, actually, not units. And there'll be 75 less bedrooms in the three-bedroom category. So it's a 10% increase in one-bed units, 14% in two-bed, and then a 38.5% decrease in the three-bed units. In terms of parking spaces, the proposed parking is 511. It's a reduction of 70 spaces. The required spaces under the existing permit, it's a ratio of 1.88, which would require 503 spaces. So we're still exceeding the ratio that's required under the existing permit. So, Patrick, do you want to?
Sure. Just right, left.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello, Patrick Bogle from Howard Stein Hudson. So it may be easier if I just talk up here, so I'll just kind of use my voice a little bit. As far as stormwater goes, it's very similar. It's using the very similar stormwater flow throughout the site. Lot 1, as David mentioned, is very similar to how it was in the previously permitted program, using a couple storm tech systems, an infiltration basin to capture this main portion up here. Lot 1 up towards the entrance, everything from the crossing towards the entrance is still utilizing an existing, the existing footprint of a pocket wetland. And this area here is draining down towards the central infiltration basin in the center, which is being reworked a little bit because the orientation of driveway D has changed. It shifted slightly to the east. And that's just been adjusted to accommodate the flows. We also have 2 under parking storm techs, which will handle the building, the roof drainage, as well as some of the parking and roadway drainage, similar to how it's done on Lot 1. The emergency access goes out to Summer Street, similar to how it was in the existing permitted program. Slight alignment change, so there's a slight wetland impact reduction. The infiltration pond out here is really the only infrastructure that we have. As David mentioned, we don't have any other single-family homes there anymore. It's really just for the emergency access as well as the water that goes back to Summer Street. We have, previously, there was 3 sewer pump stations on the site, but because of how the orientation of the site works and the sewer flows, we can utilize just a single pump station, and it'll be a much simpler system to pump back up to the existing entrance to Summer Street, with a slight reduction in gallons per minute because of the reduction in bedroom count, as well as since you don't have multiple pump stations bumping into each other and fighting each other on flows. The one-way road here, the orientation has been flip-flopped to allow the emergency access into the site to get to this building as easily as possible, instead of having to loop around through Lot 1. You can easily access each multifamily building and loop back out through the site without having to reverse or anything like that.
Is that just a question on that? So would the emergency vehicles be going the opposite direction of the one-way traffic, or?
No, it will
it's
follow
all
the one-way
same?
orientation. The current permanent program had it going the opposite way, so we flip-flop it to make it, and that was a comment that was brought up by the fire department, which we addressed. So I think that's pretty much a general overview of all the technical changes. Very similar drainage paths, very similar design criteria that we went through to change the layout.
So changing the one-way road just made it so that a fire truck doesn't have to back up anywhere on the site. And I think that's what they were looking for. And one thing I failed to mention was at the entrance, there were 5 single-family homes, and those are gone as well. So essentially, this project will really not be visible from the street.
I'm sorry, what was that?
So what I said was that the 5 single-family homes that were designed at the front under the existing permit have been removed. And so as a result of that, for the most part, the project really won't be visible from the street. The buildings won't be visible from the street. They're set back at, 800 feet, and the bigger buildings are well over 1,000 feet back from the road. So in terms of making this effective through decision changes, we're suggesting that it can be done pretty simply, just by saying that the project will be constructed in accordance with the new modified plans. And after Fairfield purchases Lot 2, the homeowners association can go away because there'll be a single owner. There won't be a need for that. Otherwise, the requirements of the existing decision remain in effect. There are 2 waivers that need to be modified. One on Lot 2, the previous waiver referenced single-family dwellings instead of dwellings for occupancy by more than 3 families. And so that just needs a language modification. And the second is in the initial decision, there was a waiver for height. And just for safety, we thought we should put in a waiver for height here, even though the building inspector said no waiver was ever needed for height, because in the In the LM zone, the height is 40 feet plus 1 foot for every foot by which you're behind the setbacks. And, but just for safety, it's in there like it was in the prior decision. And that concludes the presentation.
All right, thank you. I do have a couple of department comments, and I don't know that you've seen these or not, but I just wanted to mention, I do have a comment letter from the fire department dated July 13th from Paul Berry. And it lists a number of items which I won't read into the record, but it addresses such things as the turning analysis showing egress from the proposed building, the site plan be updated to reflect road widths. And I'm just, have you seen this?
Yes.
This letter? Yeah, okay.
So we've actually seen it, and we responded to it this afternoon with a change in the plan to address the truck turns.
Okay.
And we've addressed all the issues.
Okay. So we'll ask Patrick that the,
Yeah,
fire
we just-
department review the updated plans and confirm that their concerns have been addressed.
Yeah, will do.
Thank you. And for people in the audience, all of the comment letters from our departments are available online, so you'll be able to see them if you go to the ZBA website and look for this particular project, and then the documents are all available there.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I haven't seen that,
Okay.
and I guess I look at this as a case, so I think we should read that letter into the
Okay.
record,
Happy to-
as well as
happy to
some
do
of the
so.
other comments. Thank you.
Okay, this is from Paul Barry from the Walpole Fire Department, July 13th, 2023. The fire department has reviewed the plans and application for the location noted above. We offer the following comments for the proposed 268-unit revised June 2023 site plan. 1, a turn analysis showing egress from the proposed new building needs to be submitted. What is submitted only shows access from the north. We would prefer to see the entire, this is number 2, we would prefer to see the entire proposed roadway D be two-way traffic. 3, the site plan submittal does not state road widths for all roadways. Roadways shall comply with Massachusetts State Fire Code 527 CMR 1, including but not limited to A, 527 CMR 1, 18.2.2.1.1. Approval of access roads shall be subject to the AHJ and capable of supporting the imposed loads of fire apparatus, and shall be provided with an all-weather driving surface and shall be maintained as provided. B, the proposed roadways do not provide sufficient width to allow for on-street parking and compliance with 527 CMR 1. Parking restrictions for all roadways shall be mandated with signs posted and roadway markings. Romanet I, 527 CMR 1, 18.2.3.4.1.1. Fire department access roads shall have an unobstructed width of not less than 20 feet, or 6.1 meters. Romanet 2, 527 CMR 1, 18.2.4.1.1. The required width of a fire department access road shall not be obstructed in any manner, including by the parking of vehicles. Romanet 3, 527 CMR 1, 18.2.4.1.2. Minimum required widths and clearances established under 18.2.3.4 shall be maintained at all times. Number 4, we question if there is sufficient visitor parking made available. Number 5, all landscaping shall take into consideration overgrowth into the roadway to avoid future damage to fire apparatus. If permitted as shown, multiple locations will require an aggressive and regular tree pruning schedule to prevent overgrowth into the roadway. 6, we recommend all water mains be looped. 7, we request the apartments be required to utilize a master key system. Multiple key lock boxes will be required for each apartment building. Final locations and quantities to be approved by Walpole Fire. 8, apartment numbering shall be consistent with similar structures in town and be done in consultation with the fire department. 9, Structures with fire sprinklers shall have direct exterior access to the fire sprinkler room and fire alarm control panel. Key lock boxes shall be provided for each structure, locations to be approved by Walpole Fire. Access shall be maintained year-round with a preferably paved or poured sidewalk. 10, we request that it be predetermined and documented who, parens, the HOA, COA, maintenance company, etc., will be responsible for snow removal and coordinating annual fire alarm and fire sprinkler testing. 11, a minimum of a binder roadway surface will be required on all roadway surfaces before residential construction permits are issued with street name signs installed. 12, all water mains and fire hydrants shall be in service prior to residential construction permits being issued. 13, if phased construction is proposed for this project, we request that the large multi-story apartment buildings be completed in the first phases so that they may be protected with fire alarm and fire sprinkler systems as early as possible. 14, we request documentation be required noting grills are prohibited on balconies. 15, we support the lack of the underground parking garage. If there are any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact me. We also received a letter from William Hamilton that was forwarded to us from Landis Hershey in the Conservation Department. The letter is several pages. Would the board like me to read it, or?
This is the letter, I guess.
Mr. Chair.
If Mr. Hamilton is
As long
here.
as it's like documented that.
Yeah,
It
so
becomes part of the
anything
record?
submitted
Oh,
is
oh.
always added to the record. I mean, if the person that spoke the record, when they open up to the public hearing wants to address it, they can
Okay.
address that.
But other than the fire department, no substantive comments yet from other?
Correct, no substantive part. We had just two abutter comments from Mr. Hamilton and then from Mr. Mueller.
Okay. And all of the departments will be provided the modified plans for further review?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, we can start with questions from the board. Tim, if you have any at the present time? Okay. Judy?
Yes, I have several. You mentioned that the SHI will increase by how many units?
By 42.
42, okay. I noticed on the plans that there are labels for things called roads and driveways, and it might have been partially addressed in the fire letter, but could you explain the difference? You got a
They're all,
proposed,
none of them are public streets, nor will they ever be, so they're really driveways. So the term is kind of interchangeable, I would say.
okay, and you will be putting the road widths on your plans at some point in time?
Yes, the road widths are labeled throughout, as well as all the radii are labeled throughout for all the curbs. So yes, they are on there, and I can add additional labels at the request of the fire department or throughout on multiple sheets. But yeah, they are labeled on the plans.
Okay, I didn't see sidewalks in the plan?
There are.
They are? Okay, so not the plan we got dated June 23? These aren't the,
Is that
Came in the binder?
submission? You should have got.
I got that, yeah, okay, so they're there, okay. All righty. And you mentioned a waiver on building height. Did you ask for a waiver, or you were told you didn't need one?
We were told by the board we did, we were told by the building inspector that we didn't. And he put that in writing, but since in the first go-round, the board made an issue of the height, we asked for a waiver to the extent that it was required, just to make everyone happy.
Okay, and this is 4 floors,
4 floors.
and what is the height?
Mm,
I think we're just going by stories.
So, yeah, so the waiver is for stories.
Stories.
So it's for 4 stories.
Is it
And the waiver
somewhere,
on the-
is it somewhere in this big booklet that I have here that we're gonna find the height? Just
Yes.
curious.
So it's probably, it's roughly 50 feet. 12 feet.
I believe it was around 50 feet.
Okay. So
I
at some
can't-
point, can you let me know where that is in here? Not right now.
Yeah.
Like at
Sure.
a later point, that's
Yes.
fine. Because roughly 50, 52, kinda,
It actually.
in there?
It is in there,
okay.
yes.
all right. Okay. And I noticed in your format for types of units, there are, there's one efficiency unit, like a studio? Is that in the one? Okay, and the rest are 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, okay. All righty.
It's on the first floor.
Okay,
One
I
efficiency unit.
also noticed one handicap unit.
Oh, no, 5% of the units in the multifamily buildings are fully handicap accessible, and all of the units in the multifamily buildings are handicap adaptable.
Okay, so 5%, okay, I didn't see that on your chart, okay. All right, let's see. Okay, and also referencing on your chart, you called like A31 was a 1-bedroom, there's 8. B1 was a 2-bedroom, C1 was a 3-bedroom. What are B3, B31, BH, and BW? B4 and B7, what are those? I didn't see anything like that on the plan. It was in one of your charts.
Yeah, I'd have to look at it,
Okay.
to be honest. I think they're just variations. So
Okay.
there are different types of 3 beds and different types of 2 beds.
Okay, so there's
Different
just a
floor plans.
breakdown of, they
Yes.
still are 3-bedroom units?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and I noticed that you have, looks like for the whole property, I might be wrong, 28 visitor spaces?
Whatever's on the plan, Patrick would, so, I don't.
And you find that adequate for someplace it's going to have
Yeah, we're not
500?
proposing to change the parking ratio.
Okay,
It's required in the original decision. So we're sticking to that parking ratio, and if you would ask somebody at Mass Housing, for instance, they would tell you that we have too much parking. So at 1.88, I think industry standard now is like 1.55. It's just, the parking in these complexes doesn't tend to be used as much as it would in, say, 1975.
okay. We might get back to that. I'm all set right now, Bob.
Thanks, Judy. I just had a few questions, and then I wanted to talk a bit about the peer review proposal that we received from Tetra Tech
Sure.
to do the technical review of the application. So just to be clear, there's a net reduction in parking, although you're still meeting the required ratio. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And there's also a net reduction in the amount of impervious surface as a result of the changes?
Yes.
Okay. The question regarding management of the property, you mentioned that the HOA will no longer be necessary since it'll be in common ownership. Will the owner be also responsible for operating the property going forward, or will there be another entity created for that?
So Fairfield Residential has their own management company.
Okay.
In the future, if they sell it to John Hancock or someone else, they'll probably hire a third-party management company.
But for now, it's the same.
But for
same
now, it's the
okay.
same entity.
Okay. Okay, thanks for that overview. And just with regard to the peer review, we have a proposal from Tetra Tech, who the board has used quite frequently in reviewing 40B applications. And the, let's see here. It covers what we typically see in these types of cases, but given that they're somewhat familiar with this site, having reviewed the original application, the tasks include the civil and site utility plan review, traffic review,
So
and
the
meeting
traffic,
attendance.
the traffic is a settled issue, and that should not be in their scope. So
So when you say it's a settled issue, who's it settled with?
we have an existing permit, and under the regulations, only the changes are the subject of this hearing. And the traffic, you know, we aren't changing the number of units, we're reducing the number of bedrooms, and that may change and reduce the traffic volume marginally, but that's not an item that should be peer-reviewed. Things like, and the other item that didn't make sense to me was the water and wastewater demand. Those
Well, I
don't
think-
really change either. All the utility connections in the street are not changing.
Well, but I believe you're going from 3 sewer pump stations to 1. The stormwater
the
management is
on-site-
changing.
Yes, so the on-site but that's different than the demand in terms of how it interacts with the municipality. But that's a change that they could look at, yes.
Yeah, okay. So in order to sort of move the analysis forward,
Sure.
the requested amount is $12,454. And as you know, if there's analyses that either don't need to be done because they've been done previously, that you would get the amount back refunded to you at the end of the process. So do you have any objection to providing the town with this amount with the understanding that you'll get the balance back? Or
To move things forward, yes, but I want to make it clear that I don't want our funds to be used for traffic peer review, for instance. It just doesn't make sense. It's outside the purview of the hearing. Everything else, I think, is okay?
So no changes to the circulation pattern, no,
No.
and the net number of trips in and out are the same?
Yeah. They're probably reduced very marginally, but within the margin of error on a traffic study prediction.
All right. I guess without having had the opportunity really to review the, excuse me, the plans in detail, I can't really agree to waive our right to have the traffic portion of it reviewed by Tetra Tech. I don't know if the board members feel differently. I understand your position that, the net number of trips may be identical and there may be no substantive change, but I need somebody who's representing the board to sort of confirm that for us. It may be very simplified review, but.
Yeah, I'm sure that's kind of a one-sentence thing for Tetra Tech, because the entrance hasn't changed, but it.
I think they're just giving us, sort of a worst-case ballpark here. It doesn't mean that they're going to spend all this money. It just means that that's what, if they were to perform to the full extent that they typically do, this is what it would cost, so.
So I have a check.
Okay. That's
So-
great.
I mean, I was going to say, if it's beneficial to the applicant, I could just ask Sean what his thought process was with it, as long as the review is, applicable. And as long as the review is agreed upon by the board, that is sufficient. I can at least discuss what his thought process was on including that.
Well, I think I appreciate the offer of giving us a check tonight for the full amount. We'll communicate to our consultant your concerns about the fact that, it's your position that a really detailed traffic analysis is not necessary. And he'll take a look at that, and if he agrees, I suspect that the actual costs incurred will be less, but I can't predict that now.
Okay.
Okay, anything more from the board before? Thanks very much for the presentation. If there are any members of the public here who would like to speak on this matter, I'd invite you to come forward and speak into the microphone, identify yourself with your name and address, and feel free to ask questions. If you could direct questions to the board, and we can redirect the questions to the applicant to the extent that you have questions that they're able to answer tonight.
I have a question, but I don't want to come up. There's just only going to be one road in and out, is that still the way it is? If there's one road into that development and back?
Could we just have your name and address for the record? Could we just have your name and address for the record?
Lois Jerningham, Winter Street.
If you-
I just wondered if there's
Okay.
still going to be one, and if it comes right up at the railroad tracks, basically, that's where that road comes out, right? Right at the tracks?
Right, if I could ask, I'll ask the applicant to put the site plan up and explain the roadways and where the traffic is going.
So the traffic pattern will be identical to the previously approved project. So I'll just point. So the traffic will come in and out off Summer Street through here, and there'll be an emergency access only driveway here, which will have a gate at this location.
So if you could just explain if somebody's entering at the upper entrance and they want to sort of navigate through the site, how would they go?
So they would enter here, and if they're, going to one of the units over here, they go this way, loop around, and then go back out. If they're coming to this part of the site, they would come in this way.
And then they could turn around and go back out the same way, or they could continue in that direction? Or is that the one-way portion of the?
Yes, so this is one way, so they could continue around and back out this way.
Is there going to be a fence put up along that train?
Yes.
What kind of fence? Wire?
Yeah, it's a 6-foot chain link fence. That was a condition of the previous approval, and all of those type of conditions still exist. So that will be done.
Thank you. Any other members of the public? Yeah.
Hello, Mark Major, 11 Summer Street, a butter to this project. I'm also an RTM for Precinct 5 and a member of the zoning board. But I am stepping down and recusing myself from that role for this case. I just wanted to kind of read a statement and some thoughts just to talk about my initial feelings about this change. And I just want to make sure that the rest of the community has as much information as possible before this process really starts. So this isn't really a change. This is a new project, in my opinion. This is large. I know that they're trying to pitch this as a small, tiny little change that should just be quick and dirty done. I would urge the board and the public to take as much time as possible to make sure we get this right, because now we are reopening a case that took over a year and a half to settle on an agreement that we made that never got built. So once again, this developer is here trying to sell us on why this is a good thing for our community, right? A good thing for Walpole and a good thing for South Walpole. I want to first just remind everybody what happened a few years ago, because there were several promises that were made during this process that were not fulfilled. The first being, I want to be a good neighbor. It's clear that having sold half the site, he doesn't want to be a neighbor at all. And now the only reason we're going through this change process is so he can get rid of the other half of the project. He said that if we can go through with this project, this is going to be a great thing for Walpole because it's going to put the town into safe harbor, and then we're going to not have to worry about some other 40Bs for a couple years. The permit never got pulled. We were out of safe harbor as fast as we were in safe harbor. And since then, we've had a handful of other very large and difficult projects come through and get approved. So again, a missed promise. And the other thing is, he repeatedly talked about building something that the neighborhood could be proud of and that he would be proud of. And what is proposed here is a further departure from anything that currently exists in South Walpole. So what I see here is a plan that has gotten worse, not better. And you just heard reasons why this was supposed to be a good thing, right? Well, the number one reason why I think it's not a good thing is because it actually deteriorates the options for affordable housing in Walpole. One of the things that was actually a good thing about this project is we had single family, we had townhome, and we had apartments that were all affordable. So it gave more options, and those are not available to most projects in town. Most projects in town are apartment buildings. And we keep seeing more and more apartment buildings, and now we have another project that's all apartment buildings. So we have gone from 60% apartments to 80% apartments on a lot of units. And the fact that it eliminates the homeowners association now makes this less like a homeowner and a neighbor to the rest of us that live there, and more like a corporation that is trying to take over our little tiny neighborhood and run it like a corporation with people that are going to be there for short-term rentals and not the families that we wanted to become part of a community. The other thing is that this site is already clear-cut. So this whole shrinking the footprint, moving stuff around, are we planning on replanting all those trees that were cut down and rebuilding the wetlands and some of the forests that were already cut down as part of this project that, again, never got built? Or what? The other thing is, to the point about traffic, that traffic study was done in the heart of COVID, right? When nobody was commuting, nobody was driving, kids weren't even going to school. So I think definitely a new traffic study needs to be done, not just because the site's changed, but because the traffic has changed. And I can tell you, living there, rush hour is awful in South Walpole. And it's about ready to get twice as bad, because this is literally adding twice as many cars to those intersections. So where does that leave us from my perspective? I would say the first choice is to tell this developer to go build the project he already approved, that we already approved, that this town has already agreed to through a lot of compromise and long hours of dealing with what's a good plan for this site, for this town. Because again, it's not a project that I have a problem with, it's the location of the project that I have a problem with. So I would be happy to let this thing draw out, kick it around HAC. We could probably do another fundraiser in the neighborhood, slap a lawsuit on it, and drag this thing out as long as possible. Because honestly, this doesn't feel like you want to be part of the neighborhood or you care one iota about any resident in that neighborhood. If the board does feel like this is something that should move forward and agrees to do that, I would say, I'm glad you brought your checkbook, because the $500K from the original plan is not going to get it done for this change. You need to make a lot more infrastructure investments in school, town services, fire, because it's going to change the entire neighborhood. The other thing I would strongly encourage you to do is look into a quiet zone, because good luck staffing some of those buildings that are sitting on the railroad tracks, because that horn is going to shake those buildings like my cousin Vinny style shake. Nobody's going to want to live in those things with the horns blowing the way they do now. So I would strongly suggest that. I would also suggest that we stay at 4 stories per the original deal, and that the developer does something to address the traffic and figure out another entrance and exit to this place, because putting that many volume of cars during rush hour period on the train tracks is a recipe for a disaster. And not to revisit this, because again, we had an approved plan, but you're back. You're the one that wants to change it, not us. I think that's a starting list. I think we have lots of other things that we would ask for as conditions should this request go through. Otherwise, you always have the option to go back and build the project that was approved. And that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well said.
members of the public who'd like to speak?
Bill Hamilton, Precinct 5. My first comment will be that there's only one entrance and exit for that. That other exit requires 3 police officers on a detail. And getting 3 police officers to a detail at that particular spot is not going to be easy, because we already had to have 3 police officers there for a bad accident that happened during a snowstorm. And it's not very pleasant being at that curve, because you have one officer out of sight for the other officer, with an officer in the middle trying to coordinate both of them. So it's a problem. Now, the reason is that emergency exit is if there's a collision on Summer Street with a vehicle, it's going to derail the train, and it's going to block that original exit. That's why we have the emergency exit, because it was determined by the experts on railroad safety that there will be a derailment there because of the curve. And the engineers for the freight train cannot see that intersection on Summer Street, either way, coming from the stadium or going to the stadium. So they cannot stop in time when they see gridlock. And I know that for a fact because I talked to all those safety officers, because my son and daughter were hit by the CSX freight train. And the CSX safety officers told me that they were abandoning that crossing because it was the most dangerous they had in North America. So it's a very dangerous crossing. My concern is it needs to be made safe before you approve this. And there are several ways to make it safe. The most obnoxious way to make it safe, and I've talked to the selectmen about this, is to put concrete barriers on both sides of the tracks. That's the simplest and quickest way. And my concern is if there's an accident at that crossing, even if it's not a really major mass casualty accident, it may force the determination to put concrete barriers there to keep vehicles from crossing the tracks. If that happens, South Walpole will no longer have that fire station because they won't be able to cross the tracks. And that will affect everyone in South Walpole down there that pays for homeowner insurance. Fire protection will go up because you don't have that fire truck to call fire truck. And it's very necessary during emergency events, not emergency events, stadium events. But now, so you need to have a way to know what's going to happen at that intersection to make it safe. Because it can be made safe, but it's very difficult and very expensive. So that should be made safe before you approve this project. Because if we're forced to make it safe by putting concrete barriers, that's going to keep the children in South Walpole from walking to the pool. Because when you put the concrete barriers up, they don't want people in that pathway, so they'll put a 10-foot chain link fence with the barrier. So there'll be no way to cross that unless a pedestrian bridge is built. And it will also cause a problem for the prison complex because their mail comes to the South Walpole post office, and they won't be able to get there if you put the concrete barriers back. So we need to know what's going to happen before we're forced to have concrete barriers. Now, that's my first concern. My second concern is we know that there's a lot of contamination below the Bird Machine complex. There was dumping that was done there, and it's caused plumes of pollution. And we know from Cape Cod that the tidal changes caused those plumes of pollution to become mobile. If this project, which will lower the water table, every construction I ever witnessed lowered the water table to make construction easier. So now, if that happens and the pressure changes, that could be the same as the tidal change, and we'll now have mobile toxic plumes that can come down into the project or over into School Meadow Brook. If it hits School Meadow Brook, we've got no place to go, because the preserve was built on our future well site, which was a Zone 2 in the preserve was built on top of it. When I talked to HSC about that, they said they wouldn't have allowed that if they knew about it. And the town never notified them that the preserve was being built on our water supply, our future well head place. So we need to notify the HAC that this project is being built in our Area 3 of our Water Resource Protection Overlay District. Now, I'm very confused that this is being allowed, because the Water Resource Protection Overlay District is not a local bylaw that can be ignored by the building of a 40B. So it has to be observed and conformed with. And this, we have to do that. So now, and I've recommended in the written testimony that I submitted that the firm of Gregor McGregor Gregor McGregor was our legal counsel when we enacted the Water Resource Protection Overlay District. It took 2 years to do all the studying that we needed to do, and 30 hydrologists volunteered to help us do all the testing that we needed to do. In fact, IEP had to hire Gregor McGregor, Walter Malika, who was a geologist, because of all this geology that was involved. Jim Mello asked us to separate our Zone 2 into 2 areas. The Secretary of Environmental Affairs and DEP said you could do that, but you have to have a geological boundary. Walter Malika, who was a great geologist, said we can do that by separating the aquifer that is over 40 feet and the aquifer that is 40 feet or less. And that's how we had areas 2, which was over 40 feet, up to 55 feet, and some places more, and less than 40 feet, 40 feet or less, was Area 3. And this project is on Area 3. And we know that the Woods hydrologist is conducting monitoring of all those very toxic plumes that exist under Bird Machine. And by having this construction, it will act to change the pressures like a tidal change, and we may have these plumes mobile, moving around like they did down the Cape. They went from one community to another and back and forth, poisoning the people when they didn't know they had the plume in their tap water. So we need to do the testing. Testing needs to be done beneath this project to find out what is in that aquifer. If we found so many plumes of toxic material under Bird Machine, now part of Bird Machine was sold to this project. And there were rumors that trucks backed over those tracks and dumped stuff, we don't know what it was, illegally. Now, we need to know what is under there. Now, Bird Machine had a 500-unit age-qualified village proposed. Baker Hughes, who owned Bird Machine, when they found out all the toxic material that was beneath it, they wouldn't go ahead with that project because they didn't want people living over such toxic plumes of pollution. And if these plumes of pollution become mobile and go to School Meadow Brook, we're in big trouble. We've got nowhere else to go for water. If they go under the project, because they're in the same aquifer, Area 3 is the same aquifer for this project and Bird Machine. So this project may be questionable if the hazardous material ends up there or is already there.
Okay.
So testing needs to be done. Now, at the Conservation Commission, someone said that you should not allow toxic pavement to be used, and that's a good point. We don't want toxic pavement used in this project. So that's enough of your time that I'm going to say, but the Massachusetts Transportation Authority will work with any project that's close to their tracks to make it safe. So we need to have the MBTA involved in making this safe. There's several ways to do it. The worst way for Walpole is the concrete barriers. Another way that was proposed and they were going to do but didn't do was have the train stop before it crossed Summer Street, going to the stadium or coming from the stadium. Now, if the train is always going to stop before it crosses Summer Street, then we don't have to worry about the line of sight.
I just wanted to point out, we don't have any, the board has no control over how the MBTA operates their line. That's completely outside our ability to control.
No, but it's a realized situation where this project is going to make it so much more dangerous. It's going to cause more gridlock, and that's the accidents that have happened.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other members of the public who'd like to be heard?
Hi, my name is Kathleen Cleary. I live at 3 Shufelt, a definite direct abutter to this property, and I think it really should be tanked. But anyway, I have several questions based on the new proposal that was submitted. I'm sorry?
Speak into the mic a little bit more, so.
Speak into the mic. Okay. My first question is, can Omni Howard Stern provide a colored version of the changes as opposed to black and white to readily make it visible what changes are being done on the overlay? Can that be done? But on our Walpole website, it's all black and white.
Okay.
So it
I
would be
think that-
nice to see a colored version of
We got
this
both versions on it, I
submitted.
believe. I believe we have both versions, but we'll double check.
Do we? Okay,
We
yeah,
should.
the
We'll double check though.
621 is, it's all black and white.
Yeah, this one should be on. If not, we'll make sure it's on.
Okay, so for Lot 2, my understanding is that Fairfield Residential is to purchase that property. When is that scheduled to occur? And when it,
Yeah, you can answer, yeah.
So that will be within 90 days or so after this process is over.
after the building process is completed?
No, after the modification process is complete.
Okay, so then Omni will be totally stepping away from the process and we'll be dealing with just Fairfield. Okay. So now I'm going on to erosion, which is page 2, the 620 proposal. On page 2, C2, erosion, it says non-organic fertilizers, chemicals, pesticides in outside areas within 100 feet of wetland protected areas are prohibited from use. So on the supplemental data report, page 99 and page 103, it stipulates all landscaping on the site shall be installed as so to not require ongoing use of fertilizers and pesticides. So fertilizers containing phosphorus shall not be used on the property, non-organic fertilizers and pesticides in landscape, care chemicals within 100 feet. So it seems like those are contradictory information. So you've got on one document, it says non-use, on another document, it says that non-use within 100 feet. So that's kind of contradictory.
Well, I guess rather than have a long back and forth because we have other items on the agenda, I would just like to, we'll note these questions and ask for your response at our next meeting, if that's all right.
Okay, the other one is definitely the removal of homeowners association on the 620 document. So on page C3, project design, all construction vehicles shall be parked on the property. Where are the workers going to be parking? So in section E, E22, it says all construction vehicles shall be parked on the property. And my question is, where are the workers and subcontractors going to be parked? Because there's going to be a lot of them. And I'm seeing Shufelt Road,
say-
Summer Street, they're going to be all over the place.
So not to speak for the applicant, but I believe so. Before going to this modification, the applicant has gone with pre-construction for obviously the site's been cleared. So that is in the construction management plan. I believe that's supposed to be all on site.
Okay.
Yeah.
Construction manual. All right, so then on page C3, section F, roadway and traffic conditions, stadium events. How is the 15 times per year derived, and what if there are more than 15 stadium events? So section F9 deals with stadium events that potentially police officers will be
So
stationed.
that's a condition that was done within the previous decision. This is only looking at the modification to the project.
Okay, but it's in the pre-modification draft.
No,
May I? Yeah, so, there's a long list of requirements attached to the existing decision. And that particular item that you were talking about, I think is controlled by the police chief. He determines what qualifies as a Gillette Stadium event. And that was a condition imposed upon us. It's in the existing set of conditions, and none of those conditions are going to change. The only thing that is a subject of this hearing are these changes, these physical changes to the project.
Okay, so then I will go to the last one,
And
is the emergency exit.
so that hasn't changed either.
This is the house where the emergency exit is going to be located, on Summer Street. And basically, they're going to be taking this driveway and making it wider. And the question is, for an emergency vehicle to access that angle onto Summer Street, is the angle of the opening going to be sufficient that a fire truck or any type of safety device can accurately come from any angle on Summer Street? From
We'll
the
get
downward
the-
slope, anyone that knows Summer Street, there's a downward slope, and being able to make a left-hand turn coming down Summer Street, if this is only 30 feet wide and it is almost a perpendicular, not an angled entrance, there is no way a fire truck safely is going to be able to.
So the fire
get into
department,
that.
the fire department will be reviewing the modified plans and will be weighing in on that specific issue about
Okay.
turning radius and those types of things.
And I'm not certain if this covers, but is the parking going to be underground, or is it actually going to be at grade and the houses, the apartments are going to be over?
I believe the parking is at grade, that they've eliminated the subsurface parking, is that?
So,
No.
Oh, okay.
So, the two multifamily buildings on lot one have subsurface parking. The new multifamily building on lot two has surface parking, and there are some covered garages available. But in terms of the emergency access, that has not changed. The geometry was approved before the truck turns actually work. It's been approved by the fire department, and it's not changing at all.
it just doesn't look proper for a fire truck.
Thank you. Okay, take a couple more. We will be having subsequent hearings on this matter, so not that I want to cut anybody off, but we do have several more items on the agenda to get through tonight. So we'll take a couple more, and then we'll
Thank you.
discuss continuance.
Yep, Mark from Schufelt. So, just out of curiosity, why are we talking about a change today? Why do we have to go through all of this? So what's the reasoning behind your change in this new plan? When everything was already approved, like we talked about, everything was set to go, we went through this whole process. What's the change process behind all of this, so we can all understand, what is it, money?
Sure. So I started this project when I was in my very early 60s. I'm now in my mid-60s, and the world has changed substantially. When I started this project, interest rates were 3%. Now they're 7%. Construction costs, because of COVID, went through the roof. And so the original design was a design that worked at the time, that we were interested in building. It just doesn't make as much sense today. This project has taken a very long time to permit. It was delayed because of COVID. Remember, we started this project and and made our submissions before COVID existed. So the traffic study was actually done prior to COVID. And the board, in its wisdom, put us on hold for 6 or 8 months during COVID. And the world is just a very different place. Russia invaded Ukraine, inflation, interest rates, it all changes what happens. So, 4 years is a long time, and that's how long I've been working on this project. For companies like Fairfield Residential, which owns thousands of apartments across the country, larger is better. There are economies of scale in terms of managing these projects. They have institutional investors, usually large pension funds. They want to invest in bigger projects, and because of the changes in the world that I just mentioned, it made sense for my partners and I to exit, and it made sense for Fairfield to go on with the project. And that's what will happen here. And again, the subject of these hearings are only the changes. Only the changes. This is an approved project. Everything that was approved before that's not changing is still approved. So all we're really talking about.
Can you just go back, sorry to interrupt, can you just go back to the original plans? Just so I can see the original plans of the project and what was part of the original plans. I don't remember if there was some sort of a
So this,
pool area that was gonna be built for the community, or,
so this is the original plan.
okay,
So it consisted of 2 lots, and on the northern, the eastern lot, Lot 1, was a rental project. That has not changed. The rental project has a clubhouse and a pool and amenities for
Beautiful.
people who are going to rent there.
okay,
Lot 2 was scheduled to be an ownership project, condominium project with single-family and duplex units. And that was this whole section. And so it's changing in that this section is not going to be built. So the trees have been cut, they'll grow back. These things happen, but
so the clubhouse and the pool area is still part of the plan
Yes.
for the community, for the.
yes, and it
And these
will-
are all rental properties,
And these are all rental, and they'll all be owned by
Fairfield.
Fairfield Residential, which is a large,
Potentially could sell it to somebody else.
at some point in time, some large pension fund or insurance company, whether it's 7 years or 10 years or
Yep.
15, but this is an institutional grade project, and it will be owned by and managed by a large institution forever. It will be a good name.
Yeah, it's just sad because it went from affordable housing to rental to more apartments in the community, which we agreed we don't need in this community. We are not a city, we are a suburb, okay? And that's the way it should be looked at, right? We're not, if we needed more apartments, we can always move to the city. This is the suburbs. That's why this plan was already took as long as it did, but we agreed and we were happy with it. And now we want to put more apartments, and I promise you, there'll be even more apartments after this apartment complex. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much for all of the input and the presentation from the applicant. I'd now like to entertain a vote to approve the peer review that was provided by Tetra Tech, and agree to the payment of the funds this evening. So could I have a motion to approve the peer review proposal prepared by Tetra Tech dated July 12th, 2023 for the review of the modifications to the project in the amount of $12,454.
Second.
Moved by Judy and second by Tim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, so carried. Now I'd like to entertain a motion to continue this matter to August the 21st, at which time we'll be taking up some of the more detailed review of aspects of the project. We don't have a firm schedule at the moment with the chair being absent tonight, but I suspect that we'll be starting with sort of the changes to the sewer utility, the change from the 3 pump stations to 1 pump station, and any modifications to the stormwater as topics for that evening. So,
Mr. Chairman, we
yes.
have submitted a memo regarding the sewer, submitted it to the town engineer and the head of the sewer and water department.
Okay. Yeah, that'll be provided to our peer reviewer as well for comment. So can I have a motion to continue case number? Too much paper.
2326.
Is it?
I think it's 2326.
20. Case number 2326 to August the 21st at 7 PM here at Town Hall.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay, so we'll see you again on this project on August the 21st. Thank you. That's Patrick, so he can. I can't talk to you about the case anymore. It's been continued, okay? So I can't talk to you.
Can we take a quick?
We're going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we'll start up next with the Neponset Village project case number 2222. I'm going to read the public notice into the record. Notice is hereby given that the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Walpole will hold a public hearing on remand from the Housing Appeals Committee in the Select Board Meeting Room of Walpole Town Hall on Monday, July 17th, 2023 at 7 p.m. on an application from Neponset Village LLC, case number 22-22, with respect to property located at 5 Pleasant Street, map 20, parcel 63, Walpole, Massachusetts, zoning district GR General Residence. This application is for a comprehensive permit pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40B, Section 20 through 23 as amended, to allow the construction of 24 townhouse-style condominiums within 7 buildings. I think we will proceed as we did with the last one with a presentation and overview of the project from the applicant, a summary of the comments received thus far by town boards and departments, questions then from the board, and then open it to public comment. So without further ado.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Phil Mackey, Mackey & Mackey, 1256 Washington Street, Norwood, Massachusetts, is counsel for and on behalf of the applicant. With me here tonight is Rick Lincoln, President, I forget your title, but he is the applicant with Conoco Development, and we're here to basically give you an overview of the project. To refresh anyone's memory who didn't recall, this was actually filed last year. The board voted not to proceed. It went to HAC. That has been resolved. Town council's here. I don't think we need to go into the proceedings unless anyone feels like it. But I'm
No, we
happy to
we
move
understand
on.
the remand order. So
Very good. And so basically what we have here is an overview for you tonight. I am understanding the board is going to be asking for peer review. I expect to say yes.
Okay.
So basically what we'd like to do is give you an overview, certainly listen to comments. We may ask to make a few changes to the plans before they go to peer review, so we're not paying twice, because we know town engineer and fire want some things that we're going to say yes to, so
Okay.
might as well show them that.
Great.
And then we'll take it from there.
Sounds good.
With your
Thank you.
permission, I'll turn it over to Rick to give you the engineering overview.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. It's Rick Lincoln, and I'm president of Conoco, but I'm also part of the development team. So in this case, it's Neponset Village LLC. So Patrick, if you don't mind, maybe a few more right there, and that's probably a good overview. So this is the landscape plan. It's 3 acres. I think everybody probably knows where it is, but it's on Pleasant Street, right on the Norwood line. There are no wetlands, railroad tracks behind it. Commercial over here on the right side. There is, I think that's a rental building up front there on Pleasant Street. Gentleman in a single family, and then unfortunately this didn't zoom out enough, but McGuire Park is off to the left. So these are townhomes. There are 3 4-unit buildings, and there are 1, 2, 3, there are 4 3 units and 3 4 units. They're all 2-bedroom, with the exception of, I think there's 4 3-bedrooms, which you have to do these days with mass housing. All surface parking, no garages. There was some early conversation with the town, and we went back to the drawing board a little bit on the Pleasant Street side and created the green space, moved a structure over. There was some commentary also from the town, I can't remember who, where the left exit is egress only. So it's for fire department only and emergency vehicles and so forth. So that is not a throughway. So we're in and out.
That's the roadway to the top left.
Top left, yes, sir. Yep. We've, the due diligence, all in the mass housing package, but we've scoured the thing for endangered species and Any wetlands, everything's clean. We've done perk tests, the soil's nice, groundwater's not very high. So all of the drainage, you won't see any detention ponds on this drawing. You'll see them on the engineering drawing because the groundwater is down so far that we were able to subsurface everything.
Okay.
So it kind of cleans it up and allows us to do a little bit more in the way of plantings. We were able to speak to somebody a little bit earlier, and we have not, I know it may have been the engineer's letter, or maybe it was yours, Patrick, but there'll be more detail to come as we proceed, tree species and stuff like that. But the hard engineering, meaning the detailed engineering, has all been done. So all the stormwater has been run, and everything works. So you've got the traffic report. It was updated. I know I saw a comment there where, we may need to take another look at traffic counts out there just to be safe, because there's been some time that's elapsed. You want to try and maybe that's not a great, but that gives you, so here's the 4-unit building. I've worked with this architect a lot over the years too, so trying to make the 4-unit, move it in and out so it's not just, a straight front building that you see often. I think it was from Patrick again, I just scanned some of the information we saw today, so I can render that. I've got renders, so I can add color, and so the board and the abutters and so forth can get a better idea, as to what the structures are going to look like. All bedrooms up, so, first floor is just all, family room and kitchen and stuff like that. Can you move it along, Patrick? I don't know how much you want to get into the floor plans at this point, but, we've done these before. There are a lot of open, right there, there's open first floor plan, which people seem to like, decks out the back. Can you go back? Yeah, can you go back the other way to the engineering drawings? So that's a good one right there, Patrick. You'll see as you enter the grids, or the subsurface drainage structures I mentioned, and there's a couple on the left side. So all of the drainage is, run underground, and it's out of sight, out of mind. I don't know if we're looping, utilities have all been gone through, so sewer main's looped, water is looped, and we've, in the notes to the engineering plans, McGuire Park obviously will be upgrading especially the sewer line, maybe even the water, and then that'll get milled and repaved and cleaned up. So that's part of the program.
Okay. So what's shown there is sort of like a hammerhead. So as you exit the parking, is the intent to extend that connection to or is that's going to be the design?
The hammerhead, at first we just had kind of a radius coming down.
Yep.
But somebody, it could have been fire department, I can't recall, it has been some time, wanted that hammerhead so you can kind of come up, back over. I'm not quite sure of the logic there, but that can be discussed as we go along. So there's plenty of room. Like I said, the land parcel goes all the way out to the other road there.
Yep.
So.
But the intent is not to go out to that road?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And again, that's emergency only, even going out to McGuire.
Okay.
I think that's it.
That's it? Okay. Thank you for that. We do have comments from the fire department. This is comments dated July 17th, 2023. The following comments are provided by the Walpole Fire Department in regards to the Deposit Village, 5 Pleasant Street, a proposed 24-unit condominium project. One, we question if there are sufficient parking spaces available for this congested site. The proposed road width does not provide enough room for street parking. A, if approved, no parking signs and markings shall be required. 2, there is no designated visitor parking noted. 3, we prefer to see a looped water main. 4, fire hydrants need to be shown on the utilities plan. 5, we do not find the proposed emergency gated access egress acceptable. 6, we have concerns with the proposed site. Each Walpole Fire Department response will require utilizing the gated emergency egress road, delaying egress. The proposed site does not provide safe means for larger vehicles to turn around for egress. We request a cul-de-sac turnaround be required. 7, a complete 527 CMR1 compliant site turn analysis needs to be submitted. The provided turn analysis documents are not compliant. They are not stamped and signed by a registered design professional and only show one corner analysis. The applicant needs to show our apparatus entering the site from Pleasant Street. And a sub-bullet, 18.1.1.4 of 527 CMR. 1, the fire road access road plan must include an analysis and evaluation of fire apparatus maneuvers throughout the access roads created by swept path analysis and turn simulation software. If there are any questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact me. We also have a detailed comment letter from town engineer Carl Balduff. His comments relate to his specific review of the plans themselves, which include the existing conditions plan, the site layout plan, grading and drainage plan, site utility plan, various detail sheets, and the traffic memorandum that was provided. There are 42 points made, so I'm not going to read the entire thing into the record, but the letter is in the official record and available both on the town's website and from the Community Development Department if you'd like to get a copy of that. And we also have a comment letter from Seth B. Williams, who resides at 15 McGuire Park, which has been entered into the record as well. I guess we'll now move to questions from the board, starting with Tim, if you have any.
No, sir.
Not this time? Okay. Judy?
I think most of my concerns were in the fire department letter, so
Okay.
I'll hang on to that for a minute.
Okay. I had just a couple questions. In the application materials, there's reference in the purchase agreement and also, I believe, the loan term sheet regarding environmental conditions on the site. I didn't know if you've had a Phase 1 ASTM report prepared, and if you could address the historic use of the site, given that it's adjacent to the industrial area, whether there's any prior uses that are of concern.
So the short story is I'm not aware of any concerns. I don't know if anything was on this site before to my knowledge. But we also have the subsurface information from when we were doing the perk tests and, poking around. So there's no, all those soil samples get submitted to our labs. But we focused honestly more, once we had the clean Phase 1, more on the botany, because we get nervous, with wetlands and things like that, vernal pools. So we've eliminated, there wasn't anything out there, so.
So you do have you did do a Phase 1
We did.
report? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And also there was some discussion of the historic attempts to permit the site and some prior commitments about upgrading the water service and things like that. I just wondered if those same commitments are made here or if they've changed.
For the
substantially.
most part, Rick went over them fairly quickly, but to rehash a little bit of what happened previously, there was discussion with the town, primarily some of the neighbors, their opposition notwithstanding. McGuire Park itself is not in great shape, and by the time we committed to redoing the water, sewer as needed. It's assumed that that road is going to get completely torn up. And so rather than trying to patch it, which will never work, we committed to, they don't really have curbing on the street, but basically curb to curb repave. And that's what Mark alluded to. And certainly as we go through peer review, I expect that that won't change.
Okay.
And again, I'm not sure how the fire department didn't pick it up. Basically, to loop the main, we can only do so much because this literally is at the end of the line. We would take the water off of Pleasant Street there, bring it in through the site, bring it back through the emergency drive, and then down McGuire. And so that provides better, but clearly the larger the loop, the more people are happy. One of the reasons that it is stopping at McGuire rather than going all the way up to Arbor Court's a private way. And we're not going to start arguing property rights with people who own potentially to the center line of the road, even though we're one of those people.
Okay, thank you. I neglected to read one other comment letter from the Health Department dated July 26th. Oh, this is from 2022, sorry. So this may be old news, but at that time, the Board of Health, at their July 12th, 2022 meeting, granted the Health Director authority to provide comments on their behalf due to the abbreviated summer schedule. The board will not be meeting prior to the public hearing for the above referenced project. Therefore, the Health Department recommends that adequate lighting is provided throughout the development, that bike racks are included to promote a healthy lifestyle. The Health Department also requests that separate containers for both trash and recycling are provided for residents in order to comply with the Massachusetts waste ban. Perhaps we could jump to the, well, let's have other questions from the board first, and then we'll turn to the peer review issue and then open it to public comment.
Sure.
If appropriate, which I think it may be, I just have a couple of questions as it relates to it looks like maybe the HAC application. So it looks like you, just from the feasibility of the project from a finance standpoint, it looks like you provided a term sheet from June 15, 2021. Were you required to update that? And before you enter also, it looks like you're only receiving $1.5 million for construction on a $10 million construction project. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what you're looking at. Generally, the
term sheet from Norwood Bank, just to be clear.
So generally, the 1.5 sounds like a revolver, when you're doing the units themselves, not the acquisition and development. I can't remember, but Rockland Trust does almost all my financings, and Norwood, now One Local, does a lot of projects this size. So I don't think I'm required to re-up the commitment letter for Mass Housing, but obviously, at some point we'll change the numbers because everything's right, interest rates and.
Is there an element of this project that's affordable?
Oh yeah, 25%.
So 20, which would be how many units? 4?
6.
So 6 units. So of the 24, 6. So we'll call there's 24. So 18 market rate units, 6 affordable.
Exactly, right. And it has to be 25% of the 3 bedrooms and the 2 bedrooms.
And the standard of which those would be sold, like 70% AMI. And the only reason I'm asking is I'm just looking at the construction cost numbers versus the sales comps, and I'm having trouble with the math. It's saying it's $10 million to build it, around $308,000 a unit with $11.8 million sellout, leaves 18% profit, 1.8.
Right.
But I'm just trying to figure out how you get, so if the affordable units cost $380 to build a unit, and you have to sell them for, I don't know what that number is, it might be $380. I just don't see how it pencils.
Yeah, it'd be a lot less than that, my guess, with these interest rates these days. So interest rates go up, affordable prices go down, so.
Yeah, so I don't see how it pencils, right? So so if you have a $10 million construction project at approximately, let's call it $388,000 a unit for 24 units, you would, in theory, to make it 1.8, need to sell all 24 of them for $500,000. 6 of them you can't. They're less than the cost to build them.
Right.
So I don't understand how the project.
Yeah, and those numbers are quite old, because I would say, as a short answer, that the market rate prices are probably way low in that analysis. The affordables, I'm not sure. You know, you have to rerun the numbers as we get closer, and a lot of it depends on interest rates. But you're right, yeah.
Okay.
And trust me, I've done a couple of these where at the end of the day, it, you know, didn't work out. So I'm careful with.
Yeah, no, that's fair. My only concern
You
in asking
know.
that, just so we're clear, is like to
Yeah.
approve a project, potentially approve a project, or deny.
Right.
A project that's not feasible financially, I just don't, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like,
no,
you could
I
propose
do.
anything you want, and we could say yes to anything you want, but it's not a
I
real
know.
project, and what are we?
No, I appreciate the question, because honestly, I don't typically get answered, either questions on the numbers.
Yeah.
You know, it's
You
everything
don't have
else,
to like get
but-
specific, but I was
Right,
just curious.
right.
Okay.
Is that it, Dave?
Yeah, sorry,
Okay,
that's it.
no problem.
That's it.
Mark? We good? Okay. Okay, so we do have a peer review proposal from Tetra Tech, again, the firm that the board has used extensively in the past. It has sort of the typical scope of services that covers the civil and site issues, water supply, wastewater review, traffic, environmental conditions, and meeting attendance should it be necessary. And the total for that is $22,464. Again, acknowledging that to the extent any of that is not expended by the peer reviewer, that goes back to you. So would you?
We agree.
Okay, great. So if I could have a motion to approve the July 12, 2023 peer review proposal from Tetra Tech for comprehensive permit 40B peer review proposal, Neponset Village, 5 Pleasant Street, Walpole.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Judy and seconded by Mark. Any discussions on that? Okay, all those in favor, voting in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose, abstain, so carried. Thank you for that. And now, if there are any members of the public who would like to speak on the project, understanding that we will have subsequent hearings on this matter to get into more details on things like traffic and stormwater, et cetera, but any initial comments on tonight's presentation would be appreciated.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, town council. My name is Bill O'Connell. I represent John Gass, who lives at 7 Pleasant Street. Mr. Gass lives in the red house directly abutting the project as the roadway is coming in. So with respect to Mr. Gass, his concerns really are environmental, and Mr. Chairman, you had alluded to it a little bit earlier with respect to the historical activity at the site at Certainty. He's very concerned about the air quality. I respectfully ask the board members, if you can, take a ride by there, especially this time of year. You probably all have, but there's certain odors that are emanating, and Mr. Gass had indicated that his car and other cars in the neighborhood are coated with the dust. Throughout the summer months. So, historically, there's been activities there which include the asphalt shingles. So there's crushed gravel and silica that's emanating from Bird. And Mr. Gass is really concerned about the clear cutting of all those trees on the right-hand side. And given the drainage and the slope, he's really concerned about the air quality as well as the groundwater. He indicated back in 2016 when the applicant came forward, or the prior applicant came forward it wasn't a 40B at the time. I think the select board alluded to the project at the time. I think they were denied. They appealed it, went back, and I think they may have been approved for 11 units. So I know that the select board is really concerned about the density, 24 units. Mr. Gass is also concerned, again, with respect to the clear cutting of the trees, the environmental. He wants to make sure that the project, and when these trees are clear cut and the soil is unearthed, especially with respect to the back of the units, you're going to see a railroad tie there. Mr. Gass indicated that that railroad actually had operated as part of Certainty up until 3 years ago. And he's concerned about what happens when, again, some of the soil is unearthed. He said it's just, there's debris, there's a ton of debris. If you look at Connecco's correspondence to, actually, it's Connecco dated July 14, 2021, and it looks like it's to Mr. Lincoln, actually from Connecco, but it does reference several historical soil debris piles. So I know the board approved the peer review. Mr. Chairman, you did reference that there was an environmental component, and we heard there was a phase 1, but we're hoping that as part of that peer review, that whoever's doing it could really take a look at the environmental concerns. Again, Mr. Gass's concern is the air quality, as well as the water. He indicated that when the applicant was in front of the board in 2016, they just did perk tests, but they didn't do quality tests. So if the board can certainly, I know that this is the first hearing, but Mr. Gass is really hoping that the board will take a look at that issue. I don't know if it's part of the scope now, as part of the environmental, but we would certainly appreciate the board looking at, the issue of the dust plumes, the odor, the water quality, the traffic. Mr. Gass had indicated that his sight vision coming out of his driveway, it's very, very dangerous. He's concerned that it's going to be exacerbated by the current proposal. And again, that railroad in the back, there's kids out there that are out there playing. He's just concerned, again, whatever was emanating from some of the rail, there could be arsenic. He had mentioned arsenic back there. With respect to the site control, I guess he's concerned also about the emergency exit going on to McGuire Park. It wasn't clear. I'm assuming it's not a public way at this point. But, he is concerned about the site control and, exactly how that's gonna function as far as the select board accepting the street. We don't know, but, and I guess I'm asking the question at this point, but from a site control perspective, do they, at this point, are they ready to make the application? Do they have control at this point if it is a private way? And I'm not sure, but.
So they are required, the Mass Housing does their review of the application and issues a project eligibility letter. And as part of that process, they make their determination as to whether the applicant has sufficient site control. And that's, issues of property rights are not really something the board can weigh in on. And so we're sort of bound by the determination of Mass Housing as to that specific issue, whether they have sufficient control of the site to build the project.
Okay, thank you. So again, for tonight's purposes, we're hoping that the board can hopefully give us some information on the peer review and whether, again, what the environmental component is going to look at. Maybe that's premature if the applicant is going to be amending their application or making further submissions. We'd respectfully request that the board hopefully consider the certaintied use and how the removal of the trees, and those trees aren't going to, they're not going to grow again. How that's going to affect Mr. Gass's property. Again, he indicated there's a slope there. He's concerned about the groundwater. So I think that's it for this evening. Mr. Gass is here. I don't know if he wants to say a few words. If the board would, if you're interested.
Well, there was the thing about the.
Want to stand up, Mr. Gass? Come on up.
Hi, my name's John. I live at 7 Pleasant Street. One of the other questions that I was talking with my attorney about was, in the old project, they were using a section of land from Norwood as part of their calculation. They're no longer doing that. My concern now is what will happen if you see that triangle that's just to the right of the driveway going in? What will happen to that? Will that be sold? Will that also be cut down? Will those trees be left? I'm trying to figure out, you know, at the end of the day, what's going to be left? The reason I'm making this, the statement is we've had a really wet summer so far, but usually, and I've got pictures of just cars in the last week covered in dust. They're crushing up granite. If you know anything about that, you get silica. They're finding out that silica may even be worse than asbestos because it kills you faster. And so if they're gonna be cutting stuff down, what are they gonna do to, A, replace it, hopefully with something that's nice and works well? B, you know, is that triangle, and I don't know if they own any of the land behind that, behind the old propane place, will that be preserved, or is that also getting clear cut? What's this gonna look like? How's this gonna function for us? So those, and what my attorney was trying to explain was, and I'm not saying, I don't have any proof of it, but I would ask that the town's due diligence be, test the water now. If it comes up clean, great. If it doesn't, let's handle it properly now. When you have a steam train that uses coal, and with boilers, you do what's called blow down the boiler, and when you get that slag and you mix it with coal, you have arsenic. That rail's been there for over 100 years. So we want to be careful about how close we get to that rail as we're disturbing that dirt. Because if you contaminate, as a gentleman before that was speaking up here for the last project, groundwater, whether it's in an aquifer or not, moves, goes back and forth all the time. And not that I'm using my groundwater right now to water my lawn or to drink, but what if I want to in the future? If we start digging that up without looking, the last report that I read was just a perk test. It didn't, so now they may have gone further now, but I haven't seen it. So I'm concerned about that. That's why we're asking for a peer review.
Absolutely. So just to be clear, there will be peer review of the environmental conditions there and of the materials that have been submitted, and to the extent that the peer reviewer has comments as to whether they were adequate, inadequate, we'll get that feedback from them.
And would that include the air quality?
Well, the clarifying question for me on that is when you're talking about the silica in the air, you're talking about the adjacent operations of Certainty, not something associated with this site. I understand the issue about the buffer and the trees, but the silica itself is not being generated by this project. It's really your neighbor to the...
But to be fair to our neighbors, the bird plant, they've been there for over 100 years. The trees have been there. If you see the size of the trees have been there for 100 years. This project is the force making the change. We're just asking that if they make the change, they make it responsibly.
Okay, thank you. If I could ask just quickly on the issue of the triangle and the trees that are there, has that been determined yet, or is the landscape plan still being developed at this point?
I could just, I'll be real brief. Patrick, do you mind just going to that engineering plan real quick? Right? Yeah, right there. So you can see the triangle is being untouched. So we're grading down to, we control that triangle, but we're not touching it. So we're gonna, the tree canopy right there is gonna stay the same.
Okay. Thanks.
The triangle's in Norwood, is it
Yes.
It is, okay. And that is, there was reference, Mr. Chairman, to as far as site control goes, and it may have already been established, but I think the town is relying on as far as the 80% dimensional for the street. There's a zoning bylaw, which I don't have in front of me, but I did read somewhere that they're relying on Norwood's, or they're allowed to use the Norwood, I guess Pleasant Street on Norwood for that that 80%. I understand it's a 40B, so that, you know, the bylaws may not be in effect, but just as far as control goes and using the Norwood property, is that something that the board looks at, or has
Correct me if I'm wrong, Town Council, but we would not have jurisdiction over land in Norwood, so presumably the project is entirely located in Walpole, but we could ask that question.
Yeah, I mean, they have site control through the project eligibility letter, as you pointed out. I don't know, the applicant should weigh in about the ownership there. I should know too, any you know, if there's a zoning bylaw provision that they don't comply with, they can seek a waiver from the board under 40B.
So, I was trying to avoid a history lesson, but that's okay. So what had happened back in 2016 and 17 when we went through 40A, so just to be clear, totally different standard. What was determined, and Alana Quirk at the time was sitting where George is, she took a look at our materials, and we basically agreed at the board's request, you know, is this legal? Because this clearly was one of the first questions I asked. The state of the law was that as my client owns everything, the Norwood piece and the Walpole piece, you are allowed to, absent very specific language in either town zoning bylaw, neither of which has it at the time or now, use the land so long as, and this is where it got a little bit tricky, the more restrictive use is what covers. And in Norwood, you can't have residence and manufacturing. And just to muddy the waters further, the Norwood piece is zone manufacturing. It's not general residence. But what was determined, and town council agreed, and the letters are actually in your file, where I can try and pull them up if necessary, was that we were allowed to use the frontage and the area for the circle to include Norwood, but nothing could be built there, which is why the sidewalk ended up on the other side of the driveway and a few other changes, so that basically the Norwood triangle, if you will, stayed trees. And that's pretty much what Rick is showing now. We are under 40B instead of 40A. So if the board wants this to be purely just a Walpole project, we would ask for a waiver of the circle and the frontage, which I wasn't able to do in 16. And kind of hearing the neighbors, at least Mr. Gass, you know, if he wants more better trees, you know, depending on what's there, we're certainly, I think, allowed to do that. And, you know, that's on the table for discussion, because there's no actual construction or amenities planned for that area. But it is a little bit more open now, because I don't have to use it for frontage unless this board wants us to.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other members of the public who'd like to be heard on that?
I'll make it quick, sure. Hi, everyone. Greg Nyland, 11 McGuire Park. I'm just going to start off with a story. We moved to McGuire Park in 2017, and I had no idea that there was a factory back there. I had no idea that was all industrial. I didn't know about the garage or the detail center or just the smokestacks and everything else, because I always came from East Walpole. I came from Pleasant Street. I came from the Bird Parkway. You know, we knew that it was a single-family neighborhood. Obviously, throughout the years, cutting through there, and living there, noise pollution, sound pollution, all that. I mean, we're talking about a lot about digging up and environmental studies, and I think we just look at the plan. Clear cutting a very small lot and overstuffing and getting as many units as possible, and also leveraging 28 McGuire Park at the end there to actually increase their size footprint there, to just try to get as many units in as possible. I mean, I did write in a buttered letter. Patrick, I sent that to you on Friday. You can have that officially on the record. A lot of things that I wanted to call out were called out by town engineering and the fire department, which I'm sure will be addressed. But I mean, my number one thing is just clear cutting everything. And as you can see, my lot right there, 11 McGuire, 6,000 square feet, very, very, very small. We are looking, and we're talking about the Norwood Triangle. It's very, very small. This is a very, very small lot that will be entirely clear cut. So it's not just McGuire Park that's being impacted, the entire East Walpole neighborhood. So please, like, if you, I mean, you guys are all live in Walpole, I don't know if you've been down there, but please, like, drive by, take a look at it, and see what's gonna be, you know, completely clear cut and put in as many units as possible, which is, again, doesn't fit with the neighborhood at all. You know, again, full concerns are in the abutter letter, but I just wanted to obviously introduce myself and just state that hopefully these plans will be adjusted, and I'm sure they will be based on all the initial concerns. All right, so thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm dizzy. Name is Alan Williams. I live at 15 McGuire Park. You have my son's letter. Seth Williams is my son. It's a two-family. We're at 15 McGuire Park. And I've stood before this board many times over the past several years. We've lived there. It'll be 10 years in December. A very nice, quiet street, great neighbors. I smiled because a lot of them are on vacation. I was hoping we'd have further discussions on this because everybody's away. But I don't know an abutter who is in favor of this project as it's currently configured. I was a little confused about what 40B is. I'm assuming that means that a percentage of the houses have to be below market in order for that project to qualify. As you folks know, the previous iteration of this project, I think, had either 12 or 16 units. It was deemed too dense and out of character with the neighborhood by the board, and it was denied. They came back with 40B, and now we've got this, which is even more dense. And it's hard for me to understand, quite frankly, how this can move forward with this amount of density. I mean, I saw the plan views of the structures. They're nice structures. We're not arguing that you can't build on your property. It's your property. You can build on it. But how about in keeping with the character of the neighborhood? This gentleman spoke quite eloquently earlier. I can't match you, but I will say that because, may I point out where
Absolutely.
we are? We live here. So what that means is we will have construction on 3 sides of our property. They're not going to build everything all at once, so that might take years for us to be surrounded on 3 sides. This is 18 feet wide, no sidewalks. The children, 2 children live here, 4 and 7. 2 or 3 live here with Tom. My grandson lives with us. They ride their bikes and scooters up and down the street because it's a quiet, dead-end street. That all goes away, in my opinion, when this changes to emergency access. I sort of have a question. If that's a bar gate, I don't know if it's locked. Once it's open, it's no longer a gate. If it's plowed open in the winter, it's no longer a gate. And there's a, may I see the color plan? Oh, actually the one you, yeah, that's a commercial property. Could you go back to, please, I don't mean to take time. Yeah, this is a commercial property, and this was new construction here, and a right-of-way was granted for water main construction to that new house. People still use it as a shortcut. Once people discover it, they use it. So Amazon trucks, landscapers.
Because you can't turn around.
Pardon me?
No, you can't turn around on the street, right? I mean, it's so narrow. It's a driveway.
When we have guests, it's very difficult to get past a parked vehicle. So when we have any kind of function, Super Bowl, whatever, it's very difficult to get past the cars on this. Take a look at it, you'll see what I mean. So I believe they talked about building a hammerhead here, that's what that is. And then emergency access. My question is, who's going to police that? Who is going to make sure if that gate is open for any reason, any good reason, and it's not shut, and these folks start using it as a cut-through, what recourse do we have as residents? So I mentioned the density here, and could you bear with me? Could I see notice this area here? Keep going. And this area? I'm not sure the plans are the same. Are the plans the same?
No, that was done before final engineering.
Okay, because I think on one of the plans, the parking goes all the way here, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah. So they are different, I thought so. So that's a concern. So I just wanted to mention, let me see, how the use of McGuire Park has changed, the vehicles and so forth. And we're very concerned about, there's no way you can build sidewalks on McGuire Park. And we're concerned about people abusing the emergency access. So I know more will be said later, but it's difficult for me to understand how a project that was previously denied by the board can be replaced by one that's even more dense and go forward. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commenters tonight? No? Okay. Oh, sorry.
My name is Heather Miller. I live at 60 Pleasant Street, so I'm a little bit further down towards Union Street. I am the corner house on Marston Road, and I just wanted to speak to the traffic in that area. My home office is right in the front of my house, and I hear the tractor trailers and everything throughout the day. A lot of screeching cars in that area, just with safety. I have an 8-year-old daughter, and I'm always concerned with her being outside. The area is used a lot for just turnarounds. My street is used for turnarounds. And I'm just concerned about additional cars in that area. Trying to make a left out of Marston Road towards Union is almost impossible at any time of day. And with additional cars, in addition to the tractor trailers from the Norwood side, is problematic
Thank you.
for me.
Yeah, the peer reviewer will be looking at the traffic
Yes, I
issues.
understood
And
that. Just
okay.
wanted to add that.
No, I appreciate that. Any other comments? Okay, so the applicant has heard, your comments and has the comments from the various boards. I think you mentioned that the plans were going to be updated before submitting them for peer review. So,
Yes.
Do you have a sense for how long it's going to take?
Rick, how long do you think it'll take turnaround plans?
3-4 weeks. Same month.
Okay. So our next available date is August 21st, is that right? Which is a little over a month. Is that too tight?
We can be ready, but I doubt Tetra Tech will be by that point.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm just, yeah, so that's a fair point.
And so we probably would say 2, and if they're not ready, then we'd have to continue. But I'd like to come back having peer review, because there's a lot of questions that they shouldn't take my word for it.
Right.
Be about a month?
For us to have the plans for you guys to submit to Tetra Tech.
September 6th or September 20th.
I would say the 20th.
Well, are we sure that that's the meeting date? Because
Oh,
it's
you're
the
right.
third Wednesday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Still, yeah, so it is the 18th.
18th.
Okay.
September 18th?
Would be ready.
That would be the third Monday. Right?
Yes.
And if Tetra Tech can't be ready, we would just continue until they think they are.
Great, thank you. All right, thank you everyone for your attendance and your comments. I'd like to get a motion to continue this case number 22, sorry. 2222, to September the 18th at 7 PM here at Town Hall.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Judy and seconded by Tim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
We'll see you on the
Months.
18th. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, yeah, I'll take that. Have a nice night.
I tried, oh God.
Kick off
Oh.
at 8 or 9 or whatever.
I tried to.
Definitely went off. It's getting like.
Get the fan going? There you go.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is case number 2317, Joseph Dorset, 104 Main Street. This is continued from June 7th, 2023. And so we're continuing that hearing this evening.
Good evening. Joe Dorset from Arden Group, representing the project applicant. When we were here last, the public came, and I think we maybe had 9 to 10 families that expressed some concerns about the project. And I handed out my business card, but only one got back to me because I was hoping we could have an on-site meeting to discuss some mitigating measures. I have a graphic here which shows some of the things that I think we can do to make the project better. I also want to address Mr. Quinn's letter. I think he's the guy that's kind of dug in on this thing, and, you know, I think he's got some things to look at there. Thanks.
Sure.
It's not fancy.
Thank you.
What we did, besides fix the light that was flickering immediately in the last month, is I went to the site and I looked at the project from the standpoint of a neighbor and what we could do, not just to reduce the impacts of the new parking lot, but reduce the impacts of the restaurant overall, and maybe even reduce some of the road noise coming into the neighborhood. The blue on-site fence was something that was proposed previously, and in some discussions with the building department, we realized we're going to have to chop that fence down to 3 feet as it approaches the road. So not to be concerned it's going to be too tall and block the line of sight, just as a point. Also, the folks that I deal with who own the property were kind of surprised to hear about these speakers and the karaoke. They claim they had no idea. And I've been assured that there will be no more tall speakers, there will be no more karaoke. I hope there hasn't been any since, but if there is, that's not something we want at all down there. Also, right now, that patio was permitted correctly. We confirmed that with the town. There's no question about that at this point. But the screening is a simple lattice that you might buy at Home Depot. And what we're proposing to do is put some solid panels up that are taller that will contain that noise and that light. And noise is line of sight. If you can block the line of sight, you block the noise. And what will happen is that noise will stay within that space a lot better when we put solid panels there. The most important thing that I'm going to propose...
Excuse me, but just a quick question on that. Just the area that's going to be enclosed by that, with the solid panels shown, that's the outdoor?
The red. It's the red.
Right,
The red
and that's
dotted,
the,
yep.
what takes place in there, that's the outdoor seating?
Yes, sir, that's correct, yep. The most important part of this, I think, that could really be a real bonus for everyone is that I am proposing to put a fence on the east side of Walpole Street, across from the project, along the entire back of the neighborhood at our expense. A tall fence that will block tire noise, it'll block headlights, it'll block noise from the restaurant, and I think this will change the character of the neighborhood in general to the better. It'll block a lot of noise from the state highway, and I think it's a really good feature that we can offer the neighbors to advance the ball and maybe get them a little more comfortable.
Do you have any rights right now to build there, or?
Well, there's two ways we can go about this. I can go out and get a right to build it, or I can push it further enough so it's on their property line and get it up tall. And that's something we would have to work out the details on. But it's just more of a construction means and methods question, I think. I have to be honest with you, I haven't approached the state to find out if I can put a fence along the sidewalk, but I will certainly do that. Obviously, if the closer we can get it to the road, the better. But as long as it's even with the tires and the headlights, it's going to do its job. And we want to run it from this intersection all the way down. And I think that's going to improve things dramatically on this, in terms of the relationship with the restaurant. So those are the things that we came up with for mitigation at this point. There was a question about parking, handicap parking. You'll notice in your revised plan, we resolved that problem. There's 2 handicap parking spots, one is van accessible. That's sort of been taken care of. And then Mr. Quinn pointed out a sort of a series of questions. One involved the calculation of the 50%. We patently disagree. I think if you dig into it, that we've got our calculation right. I don't think he's correct about that. But I think he has a point about the 20-foot setback on the parking. We have to admit, I think he's kind of got us on that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to flip the expansion over so that the access roadway's in the front and the parking's pushed back 20 feet. If you kind of look at it, we'd simply flip it end over end. And we're allowed to put that driveway in that 20 feet, according to the zoning. And that will resolve that issue.
Okay, so you're planning further revisions to the plans?
Yeah, yes, we are.
And you're going to further investigate the ability to, A, whether the neighbors want the
Yeah.
fence, but B, whether,
And if this,
how
and
you
if we
would do
can't
it.
get it done with the state, we'd be happy to put it on the neighbor's property. We'd have to get everyone as a buy-in, but I would think if I were living there, I'd love to have that fence up. As long as it's architectural, it's not ugly, it's
Mhm.
going to do tremendous things for the noise control in that neighborhood.
Okay, well, I guess, so you've spoken with one of the neighbors, but
Actually, I
haven't
haven't spoken to
discussed.
anybody, because I was hoping I'd get some email addresses, I could get everyone on there. I handed out my card, but I didn't collect email addresses. And if the neighbors want to come down and noodle this thing and come up with more ideas on how to mitigate, we're all ears. It's not a problem at all. But I can only do so much to get people to participate.
No, I appreciate that. I think it's, it would be great if you could, have those conversations
Okay.
and arrive at some.
And I'm going to hand some of these out tonight to some of the neighbors so they can take a look at what we have for ideas on the fencing and the screening.
Okay. Any questions from the board at the moment?
Just a little bit more on the handicap spots. So is one on the end of the building and the other one number 1 on the sheet that we got?
So if you look at the plan, both of the handicap spots are in the same location. They're kind of neck behind the garage, to the right, if you will, or
Number 1 and 2?
Yeah, can you see the 2 red delineated? Those are the handicap parking spots.
And there's a ramp to get them into the...
There is a ramp. I admit the opening's not on that end of the building, so, because the ramp is existing, and the handicap parking used to be at the intersection.
Yeah.
if you know.
Okay.
That's it. Judy?
I have a question, and I want someone to explain to me how this 9, I did the Mullen, I wasn't here, but I watched the meeting twice, just so you know, new face, okay? How does 9.3C apply to this case? When 9.3C reads, alteration, extension, or expansion of a non-conforming use shall only be allowed by special permit if the alteration, extension, or expansion does not increase the total of all floor area plus open ground area of the premises devoted to the use by more than 50%. I think they're talking about a building when they refer to premises and floor area. Any increase in size will be measured against the total floor area plus the open ground area that existed at the same time the use became non-conforming. This restriction shall not apply to agriculture, horticultural, or floricultural uses. The way I look at this is already a non-conforming situation. You are asking, and it's this bylaw 93C talks about floor area premises, and in my opinion, a building. So if you wanted to expand the size of the Cedar House in a non-conforming way, then this might apply. I don't see it connected to parking whatsoever. And what you're looking at is, or what you're requesting, is you're asking us to make this a more non-conforming situation. And I don't believe that that's what this board wants to do, or should do. No?
No, that's open ground area, so they're allowed to increase the non-conforming parking. Parking is what's non-conforming for the district. So that's how they've qualified under 93C.
Is this the right section?
Yes.
It is?
That's what's been determined by the zoning enforcement officer.
Oh.
And just so you know, there is a spreadsheet that shows the calculation in detail, and we let the town guide this part of it. We went through a number of iterations back and forth, even before we submit it, so that we could get this thing pinned down with your zoning officer. And to the extent that, not to be wise here, but if you're comfortable with him, you would be comfortable with it, because he really kind of crystallized where we should be on this, even down to like shaving a couple feet here and there.
Okay, well, I'm not comfortable with it, so maybe I need to sit down with Mr. Crowley, because we've dealt with 93C many times before, and we've always talked about a building and not making it more non-conforming.
No, you're allowed to make a non-conforming structure.
Not to make it more non-conforming.
I'm failing to understand the difference. So if you have a building, so say we have a multifamily building that's in a residential district, they're allowed to increase that nonconformity up to 50%. That's how we have it written in our zoning bylaws. We have it also written as open ground area. So that open ground area is that use, that is a nonconforming use within that residential district. So it's a commercial parking use that is nonconforming. And so that's what's been determined as the zoning enforcement officer, that by how it's written in our zoning bylaws, that open ground area applies to the non-conforming parking. Because it's for a use, it's for a commercial use, not a residential use in a residential district. That's what it is.
I know, but I'm not comfortable with it the way it is.
Okay.
Because we're making something that's already an existing non-conforming situation, and you're asking for, another
So
17
if I
spaces.
increase a multifamily building in a single-family district, is that also increasing the nonconformity? Yes, and that's what's allowed within the zoning bylaws.
Well, I see it as a building, so I'm gonna have to, someone else can explain it to me more, but I don't feel comfortable with that.
I would ask that the public maybe take another chance to get together with me and look at the totality of things we can do to ease the situation, not just in relation to this, but in the overall restaurant use. And my client's flexible, they'll listen. I know, I didn't ask them, I said, listen, this is what we're gonna do, let's not mess around with this.
Yeah, any other
No, not right now.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I would just recommend that not waiting on people, but to maybe,
Okay.
send them letters or.
I'll get after it. I'll track people now.
Host a meeting at the restaurant for people.
Okay.
You can show the plan
I
and
agree.
discuss it, take questions like that, just to facilitate
Okay.
some back and forth. Dave, any questions? No. Mark, any questions? No. Okay. All right. Let's see. I don't know that we have any department comments on this as of yet. No. So thank you for that. Happy to hear from any members of the public who'd like to speak. Obviously, these things are going to change, and so there's an opportunity, as the applicant has indicated, for further discussion to try to make modifications that might be appropriate. But happy to hear any public comment at this time.
Good evening. My name is Paul Quinn. My brother Bob was the author of the letter, and he brought up all the zoning issues, and he's a little more versed than I am on that. I still feel it's a detriment to the neighborhood it's a residentially zoned property, and they clear cut a treed lot to add more parking, and the noise comes from the parking at 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night. And I'm not sure, like he said, it's the sight line. So my bedroom's on the second floor. It's hard to get a fence that high to block that noise. This is the first I heard of a fence coming on our side. I thought you were gonna reach out to us and have the meeting or whatever, but because he did promise when we met outside, he said we'd get a 6-foot fence on their side, but then that's a safety issue. But if they could have a buffer off the 1A and then the 6-foot fence, wouldn't that kind of keep in? I understand it's sight line, so a 3-foot fence would really, it would keep the lights off. Actually, it would help my neighbor next to me. He has lights at 4:30 in the winter. Their car's parked, his house is lit up like a Christmas tree. So at least a 3-foot fence, but then if it could be a buffer and a 6-foot fence, or we could talk a fence down. That's the first I've heard of it, so
No.
I guess we'll have a meeting and then we'll
Yeah,
come
that would
back.
be,
But
that would be great if you could all get together and discuss it.
Absolutely look at that.
And then-
We're gonna put the 20-foot buffer, and there's no reason not to put it in as long as it's the only thing you see going out, I agree.
So my other concern was the gravel lot. Is this gonna be a lined lot, so that, delineate 9 spaces? Because we all know, we all do it. If there's a parking spot and it's full, and you can room for your car, you're gonna pull into that wherever you can go, so. I mean, and who's gonna, police, I guess? So.
Yeah, I mean, you can speak to that, but I mean, it would be the responsibility of the applicant to maintain
If it's
compliance if
just,
they only have
gravel,
one.
how are the cars gonna know how to park?
Yeah, they'll have to be, that's a good question for the applicant.
So, is that,
I can address that. We're gonna put curb stops in front of every parking spot, and we're certainly willing to entertain paving if that's what everybody wants. Of course, that increases drainage and a bunch of other things. We have room to increase the detention basin. We did look at the drainage calculations as is if we paved it. We're actually pretty close already on the detention basin to be able to absorb the drainage from a paved parking area. If we can't fit it and it comes to pass that that's what folks really want, then we'll have to put infiltrators in. I mean, it is what it is, So we'd look at it.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Any other comments from the public tonight? All right, well, in light of the offer to have a neighborhood meeting to discuss it, I'd like to entertain a motion to continue the matter. Do you think I guess our next date is probably
21st.
August 21st, if you can have a meeting prior to that, or if you want to wait until September, whatever. 8/21, okay. So could I have a motion to continue case number 23-17 to August the 21st at 7 PM here at Town Hall?
So moved.
Moved by Judy and seconded by Mark. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, abstained, so carried. Okay, thank you. Next case is case number 2323. Read the public notice for that. Notice is hereby given that the Zoning Board of Appeals of the Town of Walpole will hold a public hearing in the Select Board Meeting Room of Walpole Town Hall on Monday, July 17th, 2023 at 8 PM on an application from Christina Awad, case number 2323, with respect to the property located at 3 Laurel Lane, Walpole, Massachusetts, map 17, lot 84, zoning district, Residence B. This application is for a special permit under section 5-B.2 of the Walpole zoning bylaws to convert a portion of the existing finished basement into an in-law suite. Just quickly addressing, we did receive feedback from the Board of Health saying that they had no comments on the application. comments from the planning board that they had no comments at this time. And a response from the engineering department that there are no engineering comments on this application. And a letter from the fire department. I don't know. Got it here. Let's see. Says, please see uploaded comment letter. Just trying to find it. Okay. Thanks. It's a comment letter from Walpole Fire Chief Paul Barry, July 12th of 2023. The fire department has reviewed the application for a special permit regarding the above-mentioned location and offers the following comments. If approved and the proposed project proceeds, building plans, including the locations of all life safety devices, will be submitted through the building department for our review. A follow-up Walpole Fire Department inspection will be conducted to ensure compliance with the approved plans. If there are any other questions or concerns, please do not hesitate to contact me. So, good evening. If you'd like to
Hi, I'm
identify
Christina
yourself and
Awad, and this is my husband Bashir and my dad Musa Saba, and we're here to apply for an in-law suite.
And can you just briefly describe what your plan is in the basement?
Just to finish it and make it livable, and no crawly animals will come in.
So your plan is to have basically a kitchen down there and
Yes.
fully equipped, I guess, with a kitchen, restroom.
If we
bedroom.
can, eventually, if we can.
Okay. And how would the unit be connected to the main part of the house? Is it?
There's a staircase going down from the main part of the house, and then there's a staircase to the garage, and then a door outside of three car doors out of the garage.
Okay.
And then one entrance through the mudroom to go up to the main house as well.
Okay. And there won't be any changes to the footprint of the building? This is all taking place within the confines of the existing basement? Okay. Any questions from the board?
I have one.
Yep.
This may not even be for the applicant, this might just be our own records, but it has the owner as John Lee.
Yeah, he's the previous owner.
Previous owner, that's, I
yeah.
think it just wasn't.
It's not our John Lee.
Huh?
No, it's not our John Lee.
No, I understand that. No, I understand that.
I still get his
Our GS
mail.
name is John Lee too, oddly enough, that's not.
Oh, that's great.
But, no, I was just curious.
Yeah.
I assume that the records don't always update in the system, that's all.
I know because I still get his mail, so.
Okay.
So is the size the reason the special permit?
So I checked and it's less than 1,000 square feet, if that's what you're asking, right?
Should be on this one.
On the project, there's a floor area summary on the June 8th, 2023 plan. The in-law suite is shown as 775 square feet.
Got it.
Did we have that on the application? What happened to it? It was there briefly. They were supposed to fill that in so we wouldn't be doing math while we're sitting here.
Yeah, it's on the
No,
plan
the
submitted.
application, our application.
Oh, I know what she's talking about.
No.
We did that and now it's disappeared.
Yeah.
It's not on here.
Yeah, it should be as a subsequent, so, must just forgot at that time. So,
Okay.
yeah, we have it on the plan, but you're right.
Do you have any existing windows right now in the basement?
Yes.
Full size?
No, one of them has to
So you're
become
gonna
a
have
full
to
size.
cut the foundation?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
Could you just tell us where the doors are?
Sure.
Or describe them?
I know, how do I? So now there's a two-car garage. I don't know if you guys can see that there. And that's our entrance from the two-car garage. And then when you go into the two-car garage, there's another door.
We have a side door next to the garage. This is the garage doors. This is the entrance to the basement. You come from here, from the garage. This is the entrance to the basement, sorry.
I can see. Yeah,
Okay, you get closer from here to, this is the door to the basement. And then from the second floor, this is the door. We have a door here. This it will bring you to the basement. It means the basement, it will be two doors, one from here and one from the first floor. You will come down to the basement.
Okay. Here. 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 So upstairs.
Mhm.
And go upstairs to a landing.
It's kind of weird to go through.
I know. I just have I guess, an issue with the going through a garage. Maybe it's me. Going through a garage to go into an in-law. It's not, I don't know if that defines an entry. Yes, it goes into the apartment or the unit.
So you don't actually go in through the garage doors. There's a side door that we go.
No, I know, but you gotta walk through the garage, correct?
And you can also get in through the main house. Two separate ways from the main house.
On the first level, to the first level main
Yeah.
doorway.
So there is no other entrance though, outside of the garage and then the main door?
No. That's why we were gonna do the bigger window.
There was a door here.
Yeah, that's why you need the egress.
So you could
Yeah,
walk
it's better.
through that.
Yeah.
As long as the window's less than 3 feet. Or a ladder to get to them.
So you can enter directly into it. You can do it by the garage.
Yeah, okay.
I'll take any suggestions you guys might have, of course. Please
I
don't
think
make it
that
cost anymore.
Fundamentally, the concern with these applications is that they, oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I would just say from an egress standpoint and safety, being basement to, like, the building code's gonna require the proper window wells, size openings and access, et cetera, here, and, then you'd have two egresses from there. Outside of the kitchen, I mean, essentially, I imagine it'd be pretty close to a by right. You know what I mean, that's what makes it the in-law.
Right.
You could put a bathroom, bedrooms, as long
Oh,
as you
yeah,
had.
yeah.
Just the kitchen.
No, nothing we do would, change what your requirements of the building code, for
Right.
egress and that sort of
Right,
thing.
of course.
I'd be less concerned about the entrance through the garage. I mean, like, the idea from what I've seen from in-law apartments is always have it be part of the flow of the original existing house and
Right.
structure, which, that would be outside of that. I guess, you could go one way or another from the garage, but I think it looks okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it satisfies the numbers, I'm just asking
Oh, yeah.
again, because it wasn't done out.
It says it on the table, yeah, it's under 33.
Okay.
33% of the total area is
Okay.
1501.
So they're under, okay,
775.
just want to make sure.
Yep, that's a good question. All right, any other questions from the board? Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak on this tonight?
Good evening. I'm Richard Hayes, 39 Smith Ave. I want to preface my remarks by saying you built a beautiful home, very beautiful home. My question is on the definition. Is an in-law suite by definition restricted to father-in-law, mother-in-law, sister-in-law, brother-in-law? Or does it become a two-family home and anyone can become a resident?
No, so there are restrictions on who can occupy the unit under the bylaw. And I'll get the language here.
It's third degree of kinship.
Yeah,
So
the
it
accessory
makes-
dwelling shall only be occupied by individuals within the third degree of kinship of the owner of the principal dwelling unit.
Just relatives?
Correct, within 3 degrees, whatever.
Degrees of separation.
So, I guess that's,
Like a
parent.
third cousin, I think is as far as.
No, so it'd be like, mother, father, brother, sister, grandparents, up to cousin. I think his cousin's like a third degree of kinship. Yeah.
Family.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah.
relatives, yeah. Yep.
Okay, so it wouldn't become a two-family residence?
No, it would not be. And then there'll be a required limitation to that effect, and that there's a standard set of conditions that apply that address that specifically, yeah. Okay, sure.
Beautiful home.
Any other public comments on this application? All right. So I think the proposal doesn't expand the area of the single-family home. It doesn't change the outward appearance of the building as a single-family home. It meets the requirements for square footage and the like. So I'd like a motion to, yeah. Any further comment before we close the public? Second. Pardon me? Okay. Would you like us to close the public hearing? Okay. Okay. So
I just had a question. On the parking, they all set with parking, your two-car
Yes.
garage and
And there's plenty of parking.
in the, okay,
Driveway.
driveway? Okay.
Okay, could I have a motion to close? I keep moving my agenda around so I can't. There we go. Case number
The fan is blowing.
2323, at the request of the applicant.
Second?
Moved by Mark and seconded by Judy. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, so carried. As I was saying, I think it meets the requirements of the bylaw in terms of the outward appearance of a single-family home and meets the square footage requirements. So I would like a motion to approve case number 2323, subject to the standard conditions set forth in the zoning bylaw and in accordance with the plans designed by Sammy LLC for 3 Laurel Lane, Walpole, Massachusetts, dated March 30th, 2022.
So moved.
And, sorry, I got
Oh, sorry.
a couple of other.
You paused.
And,
You took a breath.
And consistent with the plan entitled Project Location In-Law Suite, 3 Laurel Lane, Walpole, Massachusetts. Again, designed by Sammy LLC, dated June 8th, 2023.
Now?
Yeah.
So moved.
Moved by Judy, seconded by Mark. Any further discussion? All those in favor of granting the special permit for the in-law suite in case number 2323, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, abstained, so carried. Thanks very much. Good luck with your project.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Okay, moving along, the next case is 23-22 for 0 Sunset Drive. Going to read the public notice into the record. Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the Town of Walpole will hold a public hearing in the Select Board Meeting Room of Walpole Town Hall on Monday, July 17th, 2023 at 8 p.m. on an application from Anthony Civitarese. Sorry if I butchered that. Case number 23-22 with respect to the property located at 0 Sunset Drive, Walpole, Massachusetts, within the Highway Business Zoning District. The applicant is requesting a special permit under Section 5D-B for earth removal of 2,280 cubic yards from lots 7, 8, and 9 Sunset Drive. All are invited and encouraged to review the plans prior to the public hearing. This can be done by accessing the ZBA current applications page on the town website, www.walpole-ma.gov, or by emailing Lauren Mikulski, plan reviewer, at lmikulski@walpole-ma.gov. Before starting, I just wanted to read the comment letters from the town boards. We have a comment from Conservation dated June 15th, 2023. This requires the land disturbance permit. And then a second comment dated on the same date. If the clearing is under 40,000 square feet, as the description states, only 32,000 plus clearing, then a fast-track permit for stormwater is required instead. The health department had no concerns. The planning board indicates on June 21, 2023, that the property is within the Water Resources Protection Overlay District and a special permit from the planning board is required. From the fire department, we have no comments to offer at this time. And from Carl Balduff, town engineer, we have received the following through the OpenGov permitting system: a single sheet plan titled Lots 7, 8, and 9, Sunset Drive Plan of Land in Walpole, Massachusetts, dated 1/13/2023, prepared by Glossa Engineering, East Walpole, Massachusetts, and a zoning application and various other application materials. I reviewed the submitted plan and note the following. 1, the proposed clearing and grading will increase the runoff from the site, given the fact that the property is in the Water Resource Protection Overlay District Area 3. A stormwater system with infiltration should be designed to treat the stormwater and mitigate the change. Subject to the comment above, I have no objection to granting the relief. If the board chooses to move forward and make the drainage a condition of approval, I will work with the applicant's engineer and town staff to review. I remain available should the board have any questions. And we also have a cover letter submitted from Glossa Engineering, who's here tonight to present the project, but that is also in the record. So good evening. Would you like to present the project and tell us what you're planning?
Sure. Mr. Fitzgerald, my name is John Glossa, Glossa Engineering, 46 East Street in East Walpole. And with me, behind the plan here, is Tony Civitarese Sr. and his son, Tony Civitarese Jr., who run a business with a variety of different functions, different things, including dumpsters that they rent, landscaping business, and other similar types of businesses. So the Civitareses bought 3 lots of land in Walpole. It's on Sunset Drive, and I'm sure the board said the same thing that I said when they told me, and that is, where the heck is Sunset Drive? You didn't say that.
I knew where it was.
You knew right where it was. Well, I didn't.
Knew where it was.
So just if anyone doesn't know, if you were heading north on Route 1 from the stadium, let's say, and before you get to Pine Street, there's a street on the right side, Hilltop Lane or Hilltop Road or something. The board may have seen there's a Dryex. There's been a new, fairly prominent building built on the corner there. And if you went down that Hilltop Road, which is right here, and sort of took a left at the end, you would come across this wooded area on the right side, which is here. Behind it is that Gatehouse? Is that that 40B that was built maybe 10 or 15 years ago?
The preserve.
30, that one.
28, 30 years. Yeah.
So that's behind it here. In this lot and roadway, which is a dirt road for the most part, is actually behind the Walpole Motel. Until a few years ago, I had no idea where the Walpole Motel was. But So that's the location of the property. And the Civic Teresa's bought this for the purpose of storing some of their equipment, mostly the dumpsters. Okay, so I'll just quickly go through this. I just told you what the future use would be. You can see what they want to do is this part, because it's within the zoning setback and is not available to them for storage by the zoning bylaw. And I'll go through there's 5 things in the bylaw that you will go through when I'm finished with my sort of presentation of the plan. This area here is going to remain in its natural state, and then the area in between here, the trees will be cut, and this area essentially is going to be leveled off. It's not going to be below the street level, it's going to be essentially at or just above the street level. And as the town engineers may or may not have stated, but this is an area of Hinckley and Merrimack sands and gravels, okay? So you may know that I do a lot of soil testing. I do a lot of soil testing in Walpole. Merrimack and Hinckley sands and gravels are hydrologic group A soil. If you did a percolation test there, you would expect to get a 2-minute percolation rate. Water flows very quickly through these soils, and the soils have a very deep water table. So I did not do soil testing here, but I did review across the street where they're building that building in a large septic system and a large stormwater management system. I reviewed their test pits. They're at the same elevation, essentially, as this property here, and all of their test pits went down 10 feet. Well, they didn't all go down 10 feet, but the ones that did go down 10 feet, they didn't see any water or any indication of water table. Others went down, other test pits went down shallower, maybe as much as 9 feet, but again, they didn't see any water or indication of water table in any of these test pits. And the reason for that is, as I said, Hinckley and Merrimack soils are glacial outwash. This is soil that washed out from under the glaciers, right? Glaciers came here about 15,000 years ago, took 10,000 years to melt. As they're melting, the soil that they sort of bulldozed in front of them and maybe even on top of them washes out in that torrent of water. And it's these glaciers are 800 feet high, so this is a huge torrent of water. So what happens is heavy materials drop out first, right? So boulders and cobbles, they drop out first. Gravel and sand drop out. That's what happened here. The gravel and sand dropped out. The silt and the clay went down the bottom of the hill somewhere. Where that was, because the topography was different than what we might see now, we're not sure, but probably, down near the closest wetland or the closest stream or river. So these soils essentially then end up on what we call terraces. They're like these sort of flat plains of deep glacial outwash, and sometimes and there may have even been one here, end up as eskers, which are these steep hills of sand and gravel. So we're not anticipating that there would be any water table here. So the total disturbance of the area planned to be disturbed is 32,698 square feet. We're going to remove what we said, the 2,280 cubic yards to produce these grades. And as I said, we're just simply flattening to the elevation of the roadway. We're not going below the roadway. We're thinking that this will be done by October 1st. Is that still, because this took a little longer for us to get in front of you, but we're still saying that will be done by October 1st, 2023. excavation will be by an excavator and a dump truck or dump trucks. Of course, this road, the hilltop leads right out to Route 1, so that's going to be the route of the taking the excavated material out, and we believe the excavated material is going to be going to either local processors, which would be LaRusso or maybe Southridge Farm, or if there's some local construction projects that need, this is going to be good gravel fill, that need that fill, then that would be another place where it would be brought to. Hours of operation Monday through Saturday, 7 a.m. to 3:30, and as I said, Route 1 would be the ultimate or the primary route for the material to be leaving the site. After the site is brought to these grades, then slopes along the edges will be loamed and seeded, and the areas to be used for the storage will be loosely covered with millings, with asphalt millings, and just to hold down the dust so it doesn't become a dust bowl. So as you read, Mr. Chairman, we filed this under section 5D 4.B. So it's more than the allowed 250 yards, but it's not necessarily an ongoing commercial operation. This is just something that's going to take a few months, level the area, and then use it for its intended uses. So under your, in your zoning bylaw, under section 5B.1.5, and then in parentheses D, so that's right here, in the highway business zone where we are, open or outside storage of materials, supplies, equipment, manufactured project, and a storage yard completely screened from view at normal eye level from any street or any premise. So that's the use. I know I'm not here for the use, but I know that's going to be your first question if I don't bring it up, right? And secondly, if you go to, because when the Civitrices first came to me, I was like, you're not going to build a building? How can you store stuff if you're not going to build a building? But someone, either them or the building inspector, pointed out to me under section 5-C, and if you go to I, so 5-C is enclosure of uses, and you go to I, and this is how it, well, this is how it, the header reads. In a non-residential district, so we're highway business, all uses permitted as a matter of right or permissible by special permit, and all uses accessory thereto shall be conducted within a completely enclosed building, except for the following. And then 5CI says, open storage of materials, supplies, and equipment as heretofore permitted, refer to line D of 5, which is what I had just read, wholesale industrial of table B, table 5-B.1 use table. So it's just sort of referring back to what I read, and it's saying that you essentially don't need a building for that to be done. Now, under the Water Resource Protection District, so this is each of the following. So this is section 12. I may have 12.3C7. It's right above procedures for it's on page 91. Sorry, I kind of cut it off a little bit, but, and it's right above where it says procedures for issuance of a special permit.
Yep.
So it says, if you read up the top, each of the following uses require a special permit, and it says the removal of soil, loam, sand, gravel, or other mineral substances within 4 feet of the historical high groundwater table. So we're not digging down to within 4 feet of the historical groundwater table. We're not even digging down below the street surface. So the groundwater table here is at least 10 feet below the street surface here. So even though I, like to hear from other people, boards, whatever, about what I may or may not have missed in the zoning, it would be my opinion, and I'm not an attorney, but I have done a lot of work in Walpole for a lot of years, that this does not require any other permit from the planning board. It's not something that we need a special permit to do. And then if you go to page 88, all uses allowed in zone 1, area 1, to commercial or industrial development allowed in the underlying zoning district and not otherwise prohibited or requiring a special permit as part of the bylaw. So this is again saying that we need a special permit. We're not we're not putting up a building, and we're not creating an impervious surface. And if you don't agree with me, you can go to the definition of impervious surface in the bylaw, which is material or structure on above or above ground that does not allow precipitation or surface water to penetrate directly into the soil. So we're not doing that. We're just taking it down. We're leaving the gravel. We're going to treat it minimally just to keep down the dust. So those are the sections, I believe, that are pertinent to this project. So again, we're just asking for the material to be removed so that the Civitarese can use the property in accordance with the allowed use, which does not require them to build a building. It does require them to meet other standards in the bylaw that they will deal with the building inspector. As far as the Conservation Commission, I do, and I've told Landis this, that Mrs. Hershey, that we are going to file the fast track permit, and we are going to meet the requirement of the fast track permit, and that is to put 1 inch of water back into the ground from the disturbed area. But that's kind of like a building permit. That's not something that goes in front of a board or anything. So I didn't want to sort of get that permit first and then have to go back there. I just wanted to get the permit from the board, and then we will file the fast track permit, which again, it's kind of like a building permit. I just give her the plan, give her all the data that she asked for, and then she issues the permit. So with that, Mr. Chairman, either myself or the Civitareses, Tony or Tony Jr., can answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you for that. Just with regard to the engineer's comment about because of the clearing and grading will increase the runoff from the site, that given the fact that the property is in an Area 3, a stormwater system with infiltration should be designed to treat the stormwater and mitigate the change. Does your plan have a stormwater system with infiltration?
So that's what we'll do with the Conservation Commission agent. So we're required from all of the altered areas to put 1 inch of rainfall back into the ground. So that would be, I haven't really designed it yet. I've talked with it about the Civitareses. It's going to be about so it's 12 times 8, 80, and 16, so it's about 96 feet long, right, across the frontage. And they will be 2 foot high, 4 foot wide, concrete chambers with a foot of stone all around them and underneath them. So that will hold 1 inch of water across the altered area. And so I did actually talk to the town engineer today and explain that to him. So
So you're looking for an approval of the plan subject to the condition that you...
Yeah, you can add that to a condition that so in Walpole for this, it's going to be the Conservation Commission agent who is going to hold their feet to the fire and my feet to the fire to make sure that what the town engineer just told you gets done. So she's not going to issue that permit until we add that to the plan.
Okay. And then just one other question, so I'm understanding the plan correctly. The elevations from the area that's like right from the limit of work toward the middle of the site looks like it goes from 282 down to 274?
That's correct.
So, okay, so you're going to excavate from an existing elevation of about 282 down to 274. That's
Just at that
okay.
one location. So what this property does is this actually goes up and then it goes back down on the other side of the property line to the parking lot of one of the buildings at the apartments behind here. So I know what you're saying, we're going down, but if you walked out there, that goes up quite a bit before it goes back down. So that's why I was kind of giving you that. I don't know if you know what an esker is, but an esker is a thing that looks like this. So this is just a hill that's full of gravel. The water table measured over here was essentially measured at this 270 elevation. So the water table, in my opinion, in this location is probably below elevation 260.
And then just one other question from me regarding the dumpsters and their management on the site. Are they cleaned on the site? What sort of condition do they arrive, and what happens to any wastewater associated with that, if any?
So the purpose of the dumpsters is they're dropped at construction sites. You know, they're filled with 2x4s, demolition from buildings, that sort of stuff. And then they're brought to a recycling center where they're dumped actually inside of a building. All of that is dumped out and separated and recycled. They're swept out so that there's nothing in there, and then they're loaded, then they're stored here. They're completely empty. There's never any debris or any type of substance inside the dumpsters at all.
Okay. Okay, any questions from the board?
Are the dumpsters secured at all? I mean, can the kids from the apartment building come climbing into these things, or?
Well, they're going to be enclosed in a fence in accordance with the zoning bylaws.
So there's fencing, so there is security on the lot?
Right.
Okay.
Right. So the way it works, they can be stored here, but they have to, like a building, they have to stay within the building setback lines. They can't just be put all over the place willy-nilly. So they're within those dashed lines there. And then they have to be, as the bylaw says, fenced from normal eye level at adjoining premises or at the street, so.
John, the fencing, will the loam and seed area be from the street to the fence? You're not going to loam and seed inside the fence, but just so for the look of something, so the street.
So, yeah, everything that's outside the fence is loamed and
Okay.
seeded, right?
That's
Yeah,
fine.
is that your question?
Yep,
Yes.
that was my question.
Yeah.
I didn't ask it very well.
Except the access, into it,
Okay,
obviously.
and there's no utilities that need to come in, there's no water, no electricity, no security cameras? Okay. Does it need an address? Zero Sunset concerns me because you could be there on your phone, having an emergency. It's going to ping you at Zero Sunset. I mean, the fire department didn't ask for a number?
No, well, there's not going to be any building there, but I'm going to guess, I mean, it's a really good point, and I thought about it myself. I'm going to guess that Carl and the fire department and Jim Crowley, the building inspector, are going to get together and give this a number.
I would feel better, just, you're up there doing something, or a truck driver comes in, runs someone
Yeah,
over,
no,
I don't know.
I think you're right. I think it
Okay.
deserves to have a number. I think, if something happens there, God
Right.
forbid, obviously, but somebody needs some medical assistance, it should have a number. Zero Sunset doesn't really.
No. And is there, do you have, what's the grade change that you're maybe thinking? I
Well,
know
the
there's
maximum grade
numbers.
change, as Mr. Fitzgerald said, is that we have, like a 276 contour over a 280. We have a 270, so it's about maybe 6 or 8, between 6 and 8 feet at the very deepest point, which is right here. The rest of this is nothing that's really happening.
Okay.
So it's just this rise right in here that sort of needs to be flattened off.
Based on the number of cubic yards, do you have any idea how many truck
I
trips
think
this is
that's
gonna
about
bring
100 trucks.
over the course of
Yeah,
about 100?
about 100 trucks.
Out and then back?
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be like a triaxle. I mean, if they did trailers, it'd be less trucks, but
And they'll be restricted, obviously, taking a right going up north on Route 1, right?
Yeah.
Okay, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
And if they're going to certain locations, will they stay to the numbered roads, like 27? And
Yeah.
they're not going to be shooting down Pine Street and down Washington?
No, I don't think so.
Main roads, okay.
They'd probably go to 27, and they'd probably go through the center of town. I'm going to
Well-
guess, I mean, usually LaRusso buys this material. It
Right.
gets dumped there and crushed, so.
They won't be making their way through neighborhoods, taking shortcuts. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. Any members of the public here who'd like to be heard? No? Okay. Would you like us to close the public hearing?
We would, Mr. Chairman, yes, thank you.
Okay, at the request of the applicants, I'd like a motion to close case number 23-22 for 0 Sunset Drive.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Judy and seconded by Tim. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, so carried. Hearing is closed. It seems like a fairly straightforward project to me. It satisfies the plan, appears to satisfy the requirements of Section 5, showing the limits of the work. They've provided the proposed termination date of October 1 and the methods of excavation and hours of operation, et cetera. So, I'd like a motion to approve the special permit.
Are there any conditions, conservation stuff?
Um,
That as a condition?
Yeah, I think with the condition to, comply with the comment.
Conservation.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Mr. Chairman? In the event that you don't finish by October 1st, are you comfortable with that date? It's right around the corner. Summer's over.
Do you want to
I don't, because do you have to come back, do they have to come back if they didn't? Well, yeah, that's what I mean, we're asking you
We're
now.
not- yeah.
If it's a crunch.
You're gonna need time to get the approval from conservation on the stormwater.
No, yeah, that's not a very long process, but when I put the October date there, it was a little bit earlier in the year, nothing to do with you guys, just it took us a little while to get it in front of you. So maybe would the end of the year sound reasonable to the board? So I'll give you to the end of the year. I mean, it's not a commercial operation. I mean, they're not really in the business here of selling this stuff. They just want to get their land flattened off, so.
Okay.
But that would be helpful, so we wouldn't have to.
So 12/31. Any discussion about that? Any concerns with that? Okay. Okay, then I'd like a motion to approve the special permit for case number 23-22 with respect to the property located at 0 Sunset Drive within the Highway Business District for the earth removal of 2,280 cubic yards from lots 7, 8, and 9 Sunset Drive, subject to the conditions that the work be completed by December 31st, 2023, that the comment from the town engineer with regard to the approval of stormwater improvements be complied with prior to the commencement of the work. And what else? Oh, and in conformance with the plan shown or titled Lots 7, 8, and 9 Sunset Drive, Plan of Land in Walpole, dated January 13th, 2023, prepared by Glossa Engineering, Inc., and dated May 30th, 2023. Could I have a motion to that? Moved by Dave. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Tim. Any further discussion on the motion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstained, so carried.
Thank you very much.
All right, good luck. Take a short recess.
Just to stand up.
Okay, last but not least,
Being after 8 o'clock.
what's that?
The time now being after 8 o'clock.
Yes. Yeah, perfect. I'm going to open case number 2325 and read the hearing notice into the record. Notice is hereby given that the Board of Appeals of the Town of Walpole will hold a public hearing in the Select Board Meeting Room of Walpole Town Hall on Wednesday, July 17th, 2023 at 8 p.m. on an application from Nicholas Labby, case number 2325, with respect to the property located at 11 Charles Gate Road, Walpole, Massachusetts, within the Residence B zoning district. This application is for a variance under Section 6-B.1 of the Walpole zoning bylaws in order to construct a covered front porch within the front yard setback. All are invited and encouraged to review the plans prior to the public hearing. This can be done by accessing the ZBA current applications page on the town website or by emailing Lauren Mikalski, plan reviewer. Okay. Just a few comments from town boards. The Board of Health has a comment dated June 22nd, 2023. Construction is within the septic setback. Septic system should be flagged prior to any construction. There are no planning board comments at this time. No comments from the fire department at this time. And no engineering comments on the application. Okay, if you'd like to let us know what you're planning or what you'd like to do.
Sure. Well, thanks for staying awake with me here. So we're planning with our architects, Dennis Caldwell Architects. My name's Nick Labby, by the way. I'm the owner and resident with my wife. And we're planning a fairly major renovation for the house. We're gonna leave the foundation where it is. And essentially at a second floor, we are gonna rebuild the first floor and a second floor new, add a farmer's porch, which is what we're here for, which is about a 6-foot farmer's porch, pretty much the, smallest usable size. And that's what's created the issue with the front setback here. So, in order to have a porch that we can use, we would either have to get the variance or move the whole foundation, patio, and septic. So it really would not make it a feasible project at that point. I hope that provides enough insight for you.
The other addition in the back, that's good by right, don't need to.
Yeah, so that 11 by 10, that's, we're basically filling in that kind of corner to add some square footage, but that's not going to cause an issue with the side property line.
It's just a
Yep.
So the issue arises because the porch will be covered, correct? That's what.
I believe that's the issue, yeah. And what is it, 2 feet?
Yeah, it's 2.2 feet
Into the setback, yeah.
So 30 feet's required, and it's showing 22.7, or 27.7. And an uncovered porch, I believe you can extend up to 4 feet into the setback, I think, without any approval, but if it's covered, then it
That's where,
requires.
yeah. And frankly, that's part of the reason where the sun goes at the end of the day. Having that covered is what we are hoping to get.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think the floor plans and such are not as relevant for this particular narrow issue of the coverage of the porch. I guess the board has heard a lot of requests for variances, dimensional variances, and that's, as you know, a very high standard to meet in terms of demonstrating hardship and the like. So I guess one question just for me is if you could elaborate a little bit more on how you feel you meet the hardship standard. That on the one hand, you could have a porch that doesn't have a roof, so the hardship sort of is associated with either having the roof or not.
Yeah, I suppose that's the case, having the roof or not having the roof. Of the other porches in the neighborhood that are out there, they are covered porches. So it would kind of match the aesthetic of the neighborhood now. That there's a house two doors down that was just built about 2 years ago, covered porch, and then around the corner, I'm not sure they're actually technically, they would be abutters. Covered porch, so, I guess from the neighborhood perspective, it would match. So in terms of hardship, from my side of it, having the covered porch is the preference, and not moving the foundation and the septic would be, what really kind of constrains us.
Okay, any other questions from the board?
No. What's the side setback on this zone? I can't remember. You're 19.9 and 19 at the back of the house.
It is
15?
Yep.
Residence, okay.
Yeah, it's 15, 30. Yeah, it's 15 feet on the side yard, yeah.
19.
Yeah. one more question for me is, have you looked into any other options outside of a not covered porch?
I mean, it would, yeah,
Like a
covered.
side or, you know.
Or not covered. Side of the house, we couldn't do, it would be too close to the neighbor.
then you're missing
Other
out.
side of the house is driveway and garage right now, and eventually we'd love to attach a garage. And actually, right now, the garage that's there is grandfathered in, is a little bit too close. They got a variance, I don't know how many years ago. But really couldn't put anything over there, so. And in the back, we have an
Just
uncovered.
options for outdoor space, right?
Yeah, that's what it is. I mean, we spend most of our time outside, so.
I guess that was gonna be my question for other options, because there are other options.
Yeah, and I will say, you
And
know,
I know the look you're looking for, because the houses around you have gone up and done stuff, but they haven't asked to come inside the
sure.
setback, so.
Yeah, it's a look. It's honestly, a lot of times it's a sun thing. You know, that's where we got the patio in the back where we spend some time during the day and we bake, and then the afternoon is where we prefer to spend the, you know, kind of the sunset time, and it'd be nice to not be sunburned on the top of my head all the time, but.
Any other comments from the board?
So if it wasn't covered, if you had a small, okay, I have a question. If just at the front door was covered as a portico or whatever you want to call it, is that still, are we still talking about not allowing that, or allowing that? Sorry.
Does it go in to the setback or not?
It's still, even though it's, you know what I mean, the little
Yeah.
A-frame over the, over the.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, unfortunately, so the section that is referenced is under section 6C 11, which is projections. As that kind of goes over, so nothing herein shall prevent the projection of any roof, eave, chimney, or cornice encroachment no more than 18 inches into the setback. Uncovered or enclosed porches, decks, platforms, landings, or stoops, which are part of a required egress, shall not encroach more than 48 inches into the setback. Uncovered steps that are part of any required egress are not limited, but shall not come with more than 5 feet of any lot line. So I guess the sentence to take from that is uncovered or enclosed porches, decks, or platforms. So uncovered being the key word. So the fact that it's covered, that's why it's here. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I think
Hi, Bob.
it's the challenging thing being on this board is that we have to apply the rules as they're, as they're written. It seems like a very minor thing, but we've, you know, required people who built in the setback to take things down because they went too far, and denied variances, you know, typically they're reserved for things that would deprive you of a significant use of your property. And a covered porch, at least in my view, is more of an amenity than a nice to have, but not something that, you know, I appreciate the issues that you're talking about, but you know, I don't know. I guess the hardship is not as clear to me. I don't know how other board members feel, but.
I can certainly sympathize, but I think I'm with you. This does not meet the standard of the variance, because there are options.
Nice view.
Yep. Sure. The public can be
Are you
heard.
public?
From the public, my name's John Gloss. I actually live at 268 Fisher Street, which is very close to Charles Gate Road. And not only that, as you know, I'm a civil engineer. I've probably done, without exaggeration, I'm going to say at least a dozen, but maybe as many as 20 septic systems in the Woodruff Road, Charles Gate, Raymond, in that area. And that area provides or has some significant challenges when it comes to septic systems. So I met Nick out in the lobby while we were waiting for the other hearings. And so I did tell Nick he's going to have to show hardship, right, owing to the shape, topography, or soil conditions of the property. So in that neighborhood, right, so, you know, I'm kind of a soils guy, right? So soils profile, topsoil, everybody's seen that. Underneath that, you have this reddish soil. It's kind of a loamy soil. We call it the B layer. Contractors would call it subsoil. It's the soil that's been acted on for the last 10,000 years by nature, right? And then below that, as I was explaining in the previous hearing, is the underlying soil, the soil that was left by the glacier. So what happens in that neighborhood is that underlying soil is gravel. But unfortunately, it's, you know, in many instances, it's only maybe a foot or a foot and a half or maybe 2 feet thick. I actually did the septic system at this property. So when I did the septic system at this property, Title V, and they've revised it since then, but Title V said that, you know, unless you want to do some sort of fast system, some alternative system, you have to have 4 feet of that natural soil. And I can't remember if they did or if they didn't, but so what happens is underneath that soil in that neighborhood, it's hard pan. So if you know what hard pan is, it's just what it says. And I was telling Nick, the first septic system that I did up there with Spike Yonker, when he started digging down, I thought he hit the guy's water line. That's how fast the water, or how high the water is and how much their water is. If you know, that's a very flat area. So all of the water is sitting on top of that hard pan. And not only that, is that used to be a farm, so there's what we call tile drains, right? There's actually pipes in that field, or I mean, it's all houses now, but there were pipes in that field to drain the water away from Fisher Street and down, you know, towards what is now Willett Pond. So his hardship, I believe, I think it's sort of twofold, right? First of all, if he wanted to put a covered porch on, he would have to move his foundation back, which means that now he's going to have to redo his septic system. And believe me, the septic systems in that neighborhood are always a challenge, and they're always very expensive, just because of the nature of the soils out there. So his hardship would be to do what he wants to do is not only going to cost him taking down his foundation and moving it back, but it's going to cost him taking apart his septic system, hiring someone like me to, you know, now redo a whole new septic system for him, and then hiring a Kenny Jones or whatever to rebuild it. So that would be a severe financial sort of detriment to Nick. So the other thing sort of goes to the whole neighborhood. So because it's such a challenge up there that a lot of people don't fix their septic systems up there, and that just sort of, in the whole, drives the value of the properties down. Right? If you don't want, nobody wants to move into a nice house where the guy next door is, you know, kind of stinking up the neighborhood, so to speak. So by sort of allowing people to, you know, kind of be able to expand their buildings and elevate the value of their buildings, I think as a whole, it is best for the neighborhood. And as a matter of fact, maybe not this, you individually, but this board allowed Don Piccolo, I think he might be at like 47 or 45 Woodruff Road, you allowed him to add on to the front of his house, or to add a covered porch, because his septic system is literally right behind his house with a retaining wall, so he was allowed to do that. So I think it allows the neighborhood to sort of increase in value to everybody, increase their property values for what I would consider. And I do live not necessarily right in that neighborhood, I kind of abut that neighborhood, but I think it is something that the board should consider, allowing this for the good of Nick, to raise up the value of his property, and also for the good of the whole neighborhood, to sort of, allow the neighborhood to kind of increase in value. So that's all I have to say. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks. So just to remind us of the standard, so it says you can grant, with respect to particular land or structure thereon, a variance from the terms of this bylaw where the Board of Appeals finds that owing to circumstances relating to soil conditions, shape or topography of such parcel, or to such structure, and especially affecting generally such land or structure, but not affecting generally the zoning district in which it is located. The literal enforcement of the provision of the bylaw involves substantial hardship, financial or otherwise, to the appellant or petitioner, and that desirable relief may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or derogating from the intent or purpose of the bylaws. And then the board is free, if they were to grant a variance, to impose conditions. I think it's not, I don't know, I guess the way that I'm looking at it is that it's not a question of moving the entire house, it's whether, is it unreasonable to have, to have a porch that's uncovered versus a porch that's covered, like that, what's the hardship associated with not having the covered porch, as opposed to, moving the entire, obviously we're not, you wouldn't undertake all of that work to provide a covered porch. So it's not a realistic consequence of not getting the variance. So, and these issues that you're talking about in terms of the entire area, the requirement is that it has to sort of be specific to your property and not to generally affecting property in the neighborhood or in the zoning district. So it sounds like this is a common issue with regard to septic in the neighborhood. And as much as I don't like, I wish that there were more discretion available to the board in situations like these, which seem like minor. It's really up to the town meeting to draft the bylaw in a way that allows this, and right now it's only permitted for unenclosed or uncovered porches. So I think I'm still disinclined.
I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, we granted a variance to someone on Woodland Road.
A what road?
Woodland. It's right, like, parallel to Route 1.
Okay.
Like, comes out onto Coney Street.
All right, yeah, so that's familiar.
And
Yeah.
we asked him if he had options, and he had an option that he could have put his addition on the other side of the house, except his sewer line was there.
Yes, all right. yeah,
Okay, do you
yeah,
remember?
Yep.
And then his next door neighbor, who was adjacent to the property, stood up in favor of us granting the variance because it was an improvement to the applicant's property and
Yeah.
improvement to the neighborhood in general.
Is that Woodland or Park? Is it Parkland?
I can't, Woodlands Park.
I know what you're talking
I
about.
do know what I mean.
Yeah.
And I drove by the house about 4 times. And the slope of his land was such too that it dropped, if you're facing the house, it dropped to the right, and he was gonna put this big addition on. I think he did it. I thought about that because, this makes me think about that because we could have said, no, move your sewer line, put your addition on the other side of the house, and we didn't. We took into consideration the expense of him ripping up his driveway to put a new sewer line in so we could put an addition on his house. So I thought about this. Financial hardships, sometimes it's self-imposed, except for the fact that you're making an improvement to your house. And as John just explained, you're into soils tonight, John. But anyway, forget it. You know, I forget what they call that, science, but we learned a lot tonight. I can understand not wanting to, like, move your, redesign your septic system. I see an option if you were to, like, build a breezeway between your, we're not supposed to tell you this, but between your house and your garage, and make it up nice like that. But I don't have a problem. Character of the neighborhood, there's a lot of houses that have gone up to a second story, and they're very lovely, and they are improving that area, which was a lot of ranches, small homes and small lots, but they're doing it. I think I would be okay as long as, with the variance, as long as the porch remains open. You'll never put, I'll call them jealousy windows for old school, but you'll never put, floor to ceiling windows to actually enclose it and make it become more than a covered porch.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I mean, that's the intent, is to have
Right.
an open porch. Yeah. Whether it's got a railing or not, we haven't even decided. But there's no intention for putting any kind of screen, windows, anything like that.
So that's kind of where I'm sitting right now with that, just.
I appreciate that.
Anybody, any other?
Going informal here before,
What's that?
want to go informally? I know where everybody is.
Sure. Do you want to take the,
Straw poll.
take stock of the, of what the board's feeling is? We can do that, and then, based on that, you can decide what you want to.
Sure.
You can explain your options after that.
Yeah.
So was 4-1 to grant a variance?
Yeah.
So four yes votes are what you need. So,
I'm okay with that. I think what concerns me is that there are other options to cover a porch other than actually having a roof. Right? You can have umbrellas or other types of canopies and stuff that don't require rebuilding. So if the purpose is I want a porch and I want it covered, you can do that without a variance. So I think that's where I'm struggling, knowing that we've denied lots of these types of things and told people, no, this is what the law says, and you don't meet the standard for hardship. So it's just, I certainly sympathize, and I actually tried to do something very similar at my house, and read this and found out that I was in a setback too, and said, I know what that takes, and I'm not doing it. I'm gonna go fix my deck. So
I honestly don't know what it takes.
So I think I'm kind of on the side of this doesn't really meet the criteria to live within the standard we've kind of set as a board.
I think I'm with Mark. I don't think it meets the threshold of a hardship. There are other options, an uncovered porch. Yeah, I don't know if it, in my mind, it meets the threshold of a hardship.
I was a
Well,
yes.
you were a yes, sir.
My proposal was okay
So, and I-
with the condition.
no, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but I tend to agree that this doesn't rise to the level of hardship that we have granted variances in the past. So I would be inclined against. So with that, you can proceed to close, then we could take a formal vote and write a decision to whatever the vote turns out to be. Or if you choose, you can withdraw without prejudice to, consider an alternative approach. And then that would sort of end the case without any vote,
Okay.
positive or negative.
Can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
If I did the porch itself as designed and the actual structure roof within the setback, it'd be kind of goofy. You got like a porch that sticks out from the roof. But if the roof is not within the setback, is that acceptable?
So
it's like a half covered?
I was thinking of the same thing. It is kind of goofy, but you might want to talk with building about it, because
It's only the roof that needs to be compliant.
that's, yeah,
We do it all the time.
exactly.
I honestly, it came to me about 2 minutes ago and I hadn't really considered that. Right, yeah, that sticks out. I mean,
I mean, your house is flat too. If it were stuck out, then you could do a porch on the two sides that don't stick out and just have a smaller area. But it's,
because right now it's what, it's a 6-foot porch, the actual space that we would use, leave that. The roof itself would have to be 3.7 feet? Yeah. I don't know, I'm just, if that was something we chose to do, is that a problem? Or is that,
I mean, it's a building commission.
It would be a building question.
yeah, no, I'm just, if we're gonna go down that road later, I'd rather just ask the question here
Yeah.
than, yeah,
It's only the roof.
okay. Can I, worth withdrawing, going for,
So what they're telling you is, if you don't withdraw and they vote to turn it down, which is, sounds like you're gonna do, you can't come back for 2 years. If you just withdraw, you can file a
Come back.
new application tomorrow.
why don't we withdraw, I mean, can't hurt, yeah, all right, then I would like to withdraw.
That's what I would do.
All right, great.
Thanks. And
Thanks for your time, everybody.
No,
Appreciate it.
appreciate it. Well, let
Thanks.
me take a motion then to, do I need to close the hearing, or do I?
Motion to have a motion to close the hearing, and then
Okay.
a motion to accept the withdrawal without prejudice.
So could I have a motion, motion to close case number 23-25 for 11 Charles Gate Road?
Second.
Moved by Judy and seconded by Tim. All those in favor of closing the hearing, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And at the request of the applicant, could I have a motion to approve the withdrawal of case number 23-25 as requested by the applicant?
Second.
Moved by Mark and seconded by Dave. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Abstained, so carried. Okay. Thanks very much. I apologize, but
Have a good night. No,
unfortunately, that's
thank
what the...
Comes with the job.
Let's get into some good minutes.
Do we have any energy left for these minutes, or
I'm sorry?
did anybody read them?
I read one of them.
We can do it next
Scanned the
meeting
first
if
one.
you want.
It looked okay.
The 26th, whatever.
The 7th, I was like, oh, it's okay.
Really be that far behind. But
When I was absent,
I just had one comment on the June 7th minutes. On page 4, there was a motion just above case number 2319. And the motion carried 5-0, but after my name, there's a nay.
Oh, yeah, good catch.
Oh, okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's an easy fix.
Otherwise, those look great.
Yeah.
And I haven't read through the other ones.
I haven't either. Can we punt those to?
Do you want to just do both on, I can correct it for the next meeting and we can just do it on the 26th, do both of them?
I'd even approve them with
Or-
that correction.
That's it, well, that's fine.
Yeah, unless anybody has,
You don't have to look at
I'm
it
going to
again.
abstain because I wasn't here.
okay.
Okay, so,
You want to, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of June 7th, 2023, subject to the one change just mentioned?
So moved.
Moved by Mark and seconded by Dave. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Abstain.
Judy abstaining. And we'll reserve, I guess, on the June 26th.
Yep, and then,
minutes
yep,
Until the next meeting.
and then motion to adjourn.
Right. Unless anybody has further business for the board.
Okay.
I'm good.
Next meeting's the 26th. That's it.
Motion,
I have nothing.
can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Judy, seconded by everybody else. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.